Howdy-o, what do you know? This is Rabbit of ScrubLeet Academy, and we are back for our second part of the Epic Destiny revamp. And we're actually in the Epic Destinies right now. What you have to do normally, if I move this down, to actually access them, you would have to go through all of these little areas here. All of these 4 portals that lead to the different spheres, which is a really cool addition, and this area is really... I don't know, is this the conjunction? Yeah, this is the conjunction of the spheres. That's what they called it. And it's really, really cool. This actually makes you feel a little more epic. And that's the big thing about this is, when you went into Epic Destinies before, it was just like any other day. You didn't feel epic. And of course, you felt weak if you were a first level character, or a first life character. You felt weaker than you actually were when you were at level 1, doing heroic stuff. Because the Epic Destinies scaled enemies, or rather the game was scaled such that enemies accounted for you having Epic Destinies. So not having them, you felt weak. Whereas in this regard, you actually get a few Destiny points right off the bat, and you would get them as you leveled up and as you got past lives and so on and so forth. Now there are more points to gain. I've got 51 that I can spend, but my fate points themselves were at 22, so I've got 7 permanent Destiny points because 22 divided by 3 is, well, 7 rounded down. And everything rounds down. So that's how that works. But for the second part here, I'm actually not going to go into which abilities are powerful or not powerful. I think that's been done ad nauseum. I think the thing to do here is just, which of these abilities feel like the Epic Destiny that they're in? I think that's important because the theme of the Destiny has to come through in the Destiny. And honestly, nobody's really tackling this area. I will go into which abilities I think are awesome as well, if I come across one that's amazing, or if I see that they've kept an iconic ability or done something cool. But for the most part, it's going to be which abilities thematically fit this particular thing. Because scaling, the numbers game, is something that we can just adjust anytime we need to. So any number in the game, anything that has a scaling value, like, you know, +2 Sunder DCs, +4, +6 up the ranking, that can be changed at any time, and it doesn't really require a lot of work. What matters is, did it capture the theme of the Epic Destiny itself? Do I feel like a Divine Crusader? Do I feel like a Shadowdancer or a Primal Avatar? I need to have that in point first, before I actually adjust whether or not these abilities are scaling accordingly. And that's an area that people are not tackling, and that's an area I want to today. So I'm going to go over these, just a bit of, you know, preamble there, but I'm going to go over each of these abilities and just sort of determine, does it feel like the Epic Destiny to which it pertains? So let's go ahead and start with Divine Crusader, because I think this is the first one that popped up on my Destinies list, and as you can tell, you can swap between these Destinies. Some of them, like the Exalted Angel or the Fate Singer, are not fully filled out yet. They're not done up. So you've just got a couple of things here and there just to hold places. So I'm not going to go over those. It's just going to be the 7 that are actually in some state of finish right now. And you'll notice that 3 cores are missing. They are probably, or from what it seems in the notes, they might be increasing the level cap to account for those 3 additional cores. But basically, as I mentioned in the first part, this is all just like an enhancement tree thing. You can just add points wherever you see fit, and you can just keep adding... Yeah, there we go. And you can just keep adding points how you see fit, and it'll unlock higher tiers as you go up the list. And you can just keep doing that all the way through. So we're not super concerned about that, though. We're just going to go over these abilities and see if they feel like the Destiny. So Divine Crusader, starting off, Sunder Evil. This is a big deal, actually, and not just with Sunder Evil, but with all the trees. You'll notice that they're giving 10 melee power, 6 range power, and something else sometimes. But the 10 melee and 6 ranged are scaled throughout for each one. This one also gives 10 melee and 6 ranged, as it used to. This one particularly is spell-oriented, so it's going to give spell DCs. But anything that would normally give melee and ranged power will give 10 and 6, respectively. It's going to be properly scaled in that regard, which is really, really good. They've made it so that you don't have to be a certain Destiny to get the melee power you need to make your build work. You can play the game now. You can do whatever Destiny you feel like. If I'm a rogue that feels like a Divine Crusader, I can go into Divine Crusader now, and it doesn't really matter. And that's good. That's really good. Because before, I wouldn't be able to get the melee power for my rogue, in particular, without something like Shadowdancer or Grandmaster of Flowers, and then I would need some rogue thematic abilities to help me along. It kind of gated you in the old system. In this one, it's a lot less restricting in that regard. But Sunder Evil, now that we've finally gotten past all that. So basically, Paladin, Divine Crusader gives melee power, range power, and HP, 15 HP. Fine, it doesn't feel like Sunder Evil to me, honestly. There would have to be something thematic to a light damager or a light caster or somebody who follows the light or somebody who uses light or holy or protective magics. It doesn't feel like that right now. Sunder Evil just kind of feels like your generic core just given a name. Extraordinary Virtue, your weapons are immune to durability damage. Is that really a fighter thing? Or is that a Divine Crusader thing? Sorry. I was thinking it might be a fighter thing. It kind of does feel like a fighter thing. It feels like fighters would have weapons that are big and bulky and made of sturdy material that would be immune to durability damage. It doesn't really feel like a Divine Crusader thing to me. +3 saving throws does, because paladins have a lot of saving throws. But the immunity to durability damage is a little weird. It's a little weird, but okay, cool. And confront any foe. Armor class, positive heal amp. Yeah, statistically, sure, but it's just numbers. Anytime I come across these ones that are just numbers, I'm probably going to be like, unless there's something in those numbers that is inherent to Paladin. Divine Smite, you gain the Smite Evil feat. Excellent. Perfect addition to this tree. I really like it. It keeps the Pally theme. It keeps the Holy Damager theme. And it also gives you temporary HP and additional temporary HP for each Divine Charge you have. That's okay, too. That's fine. I don't really mind that. That works. That's an example of actually something that I mentioned just now, which is if it's giving stats, but it's also giving something thematic, it works perfectly. Divine Smite, I love it there. We've got Shield of Justice, secondary shield bash attack, sure, stats, whatever. Spear of Light, attack rolls and damage, meh, sure, whatever. It's the same thing, like, it's just a name, but it doesn't really give anything thematic to Pally, but they're not all going to, let's be real. Divine Sundering, Sunder DCs, sure. And Crusading Strike, which is a cleave attack. It's a melee cleave, or just a standard ranged attack, but I think that this one might also be, it's not saying it here, it's just saying ranged attack +1 weapon. I think it might also be a ranged cleave. And that's the thing to watch out for, is ranged cleaves can be really dangerous to use, really dangerous to implement in the game, I mean, because Rangers should not have the availability of cleaving that a melee should. Melee take a greater risk, so they should have a greater reward. In the case of AoE damage, that is a greater reward. It's not necessarily higher damage to a single target, but to hit multiple things is a big deal in combat. I guess the question is, do we need another Paladin cleave? But then again, I suppose it's okay, just because the Pally cleave's already in the tree. If we click this, I'm pretty sure it's going to go up to 2 and 3 weapon, and it's going to go up to 2 and 3, yeah. So that's going to be your standard cleaving strike that the Pally tree would actually have, which is Exalted Cleave, I think? I think Avenging Cleave is the bigger one, yes. So it's got elements of both, where it gives you vulnerability and armor destruction, and also is +3 weapon. So, honestly, I can't argue against it. I kind of like it. I wonder if there are too many cleaves already, but for classes that would not have access to that, I gotta say that's... If I'm going to accept it in the Pally tree, I'm going to accept it here. So that's fine. I'll take that. So we've got Smite the Wicked. So what is this? A ranged attack with +3 and +1 crit multiplier, and deals holy damage per character level. Consumes all charges, and drops a bunch of vulnerability and armor destruction. And it's a Smite Evil attack, so it actually uses the Smite Evil charges. That's the range version. The melee version is the same thing. It's just melee version. Alright, I could see that. Yeah, I can totally see that. Smite the Wicked and Purge the Impure is the ranged version. I can see that, honestly. It's not too bad, and it's a really cool ability. Now, it uses Smite Evil charges, which means it is using some of the Pally stuff, so it does build on the heroic, which is really cool. I like that. Oh, yes, they kept Consecration. That's the big thing that I like here. It's Pally themed, and also it fits the tree. I mean, it's Divine Crusader. It's an iconic ability. It fits the tree. I like it. Let's keep it. Let's keep it the way it is. And there is one later on there that we'll get to that actually combine the damage increase portion with the damage portion. So that's the big thing. Holy Mantle. So here's one of those mantles that we discussed earlier, where each class has their own Destiny mantle, and it does a certain thing. It's an aura that you just have, and you can apply it as you see fit. And honestly, let's just go ahead and check that out, and we'll just bring up our stuff again, throw our mantle on, which should be in enhancements, I believe. I wonder maybe if it would be a good idea to actually put in a specific Epic Destiny area in the character sheet here. Even just extend the character sheet and have an Epic Destiny somewhere in there. But we'll throw Holy Mantle on the side here. It should just be an aura. It'll apply. Yep, very nice. And you have BAB equal to your character level, which is really cool for somebody who's trying to do this. And they have your alignment for DR purposes. Now that's a big deal, and I love that. Because Paladin would always have, you know, good and lawful aligned. But you could also have a chaotic lawful, or a chaotic lawful, a chaotic good, or a chaotic neutral, or something like that, and you would still have that chaotic element. It's really good because it works with everybody, but it also has that pally theme as well. And the BAB equal to your character level, that's just kind of cool. It leads you into the idea that you're a melee fighter. I'll take it, that's pretty cool. Anyway, back at it with Shield of Faith. Divine Charges now grant armor class, critical hits, have a 10% chance to generate a divine charge. I mean, it kind of feels statistical, honestly. Extra armor class is fair, it's just eh. Endless smiting, extra smite evils, sure. Sure. It's stats, but it builds off of something that we had, so cool. True Seeing and Immune to Blindness, that one I don't necessarily like, because I don't know that True Seeing and Immunity to Blindness are actually a thing that angels or the Archons or whatever would have. I don't know if that's the most iconic thing for them. I guess, but physical and magical resistance, and while holding a shield you have magic missile immunity as per the shield spell. That one's weird. That one's weird to me. It feels more like an Eldritch Knight thingy rather than a Paladin thing. Just weird. Axiom of Faith. Now this is a big one. You can actually choose another favored weapon, which is cool. I mean, I can't argue with that. Sure, go for it. And Divine Destiny Mantle now grants favored weapons increases to their bonus, and they're also considered implements to you. Which is kind of cool because that'll help with the holy spell power too. So that's not bad, it's not bad. Being struck by you have a chance to grant you a Smite Evil charge, up to 30%, and when you're struck below 50%, you automatically regenerate a Smite Evil, gain a Divine Charge, and consecrate the ground. Okay, that's super awesome. I love that. That is amazing. I like the consecrate by itself. The consecrate is really cool. But the fact that you get to automatically drop one at level 3, like, I'm probably going to take that just for the theme of it. Favored weapons increase when weapon die, sure. Consecrate now grants, yes, this is the one, Crusade. So Crusade actually combines the damage and the damage increase portion. And the damage increase just refreshes every 3 seconds while standing within consecrated areas. So that's cool. They kept the Consecrate, which was probably the coolest thing in Divine Crusader. I'll take it. Your Destiny Mantle now grants you the defensive traits of a Celestial, 10 physical, 10 acid, cold, electric, all the absorptions for what Celestials would have, and you're immune to petrification. That is iconic. Perfect. Keep it. Excellent. Blessed Strikes, just double strike and double shot. Sure, it's a stat. It's not really super useful, but, you know, it's a stat. I think double strike and double shot, actually, double strike is pretty easy to get these days. Double shot, maybe easy to get. I don't know. I haven't played a Ranger in a while, not since the gear revamps. But it's probably pretty easy to get, and it lost all of its prestige and allure when they made double strike just double damage. So I don't know. Just by the nature of the double attack mod at this point, I'm not super into that, but you know. Purge the Wicked increases to crit or double if you have power crit feat. I mean, technically it makes power crit somewhat useful, but I don't know if it's amazing. I know that they do this a lot. They're doing this idea of if you have a particular feat, you get double the bonus or X amount increase on the bonus. It's kind of cool, and it kind of ties back to the whole epic toughness versus toughness thing that used to be in, where now I think you can just get epic toughness. But, I don't know, it just... Purge the Wicked just feels like another stat increase to me. Smite Evil attacks apply the Crusade buff to your entire party for 4 seconds. That's super cool. You gain AC and PRR for every 2 religious lore feats you have. That's, I don't know, like, the religious lore, the wilderness lore, arcane lore, that stuff, it was just, it feels like it should be worth more on the face of it. It kind of feels like Turn Undead, if we're going to be fair, like using Turn Undead charges to apply X to your target. Not as good as Turn Undead is now increased in value. The actual ability, the baseline value. to me, that kind of feels like the Paladin's Remove Disease, where at level 6 they can just choose to make it a Great Arresto. It's like, then why don't you just call it Great Arresto? Why do we need the extra, the preamble? Why do we need to call it Remove Disease when it's just this thing in 2 levels? It's kind of like that. Like, what do religious lore feats give by themselves? They don't. They don't give anything. Just like the natural, the wilderness lore, whatever it is, just like the arcane lore, they don't give anything by themselves. And I don't know if arcane lore is in this, actually, because I think it was when I started, and I haven't paid attention because they were so pointless. But those lore feats should give something by themselves, not just augment things that you have later. That's the thing. So maybe this would be fine if religious lore by itself gave something valuable. Bring down Wrath, your shield is considered a favored weapon. Sure, and now double strikes at 50%. I mean, if you're a shield bearer, sure, why not? That's fine. It's kind of cool. It keeps the favored weapon theme going. Favored weapon should be a core part of the class, at least of the of some divine caster. They should be a core part of that class. So I don't really have a problem with that, honestly. I would say it's not my favorite, but that's just because I'm not a shield user most times. But if shields start to become viable, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I've seen some of the videos. I believe it was Strimtom that ended up making the Paladin Vanguard. I've seen a couple of them, and I've seen them be useful. I'm going to say sure. For the people who like shields, sure. When you critically hit with an attack, you deal extra law damage per character level, apply a stack of vulnerability, and it scales with 200% of melee ranged, and if you have the embodiment of law feat, it now triggers on each hit instead. Okay, so it would trigger on hits instead of criticals. Okay. I mean, sure, it keeps the vulnerability theme going. Technically, it's just more of a stat thingy, but it's got the law damage, which is kind of cool, and it's not like a super law-based tree, but it has that little bit extra. I'm gonna say sure, just for the sake of Paladin, but it's not amazing. It's kind of helpful, I guess, for a bit of extra damage eke out. Is it a tier 5? I mean, 1d6 per character level isn't super bad, and vulnerability just keeps stacking vulnerability. No, it's not bad. It's just I don't know. I just don't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this one. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not sure. When using a favored weapon, increase crit multiplier. Well, technically it's a favored weapon thing, but at the same time, that crit multiplier stuff is getting a little out of hand, I think. Crit multiplier, it's not that I don't like crits, it's that I don't like the ease of it in heroics and then the sort of gating of it in epics, where there's one feat, maybe a couple of abilities that gate it, but it's trying to curtail something that was a problem in heroics, especially with things like Sword of Shadows. Whereas, if you didn't have crit multiplier, but you had something specific to the favored weapon, like when using a favored weapon, you can banish, certain undead or evil outsiders or something like that. Like, that's thematic right there. It's still passive. It still technically does an insta-kill effect, which wouldn't normally be thematic, but the idea of being the Divine Crusader and sending the evil guys back to their realm is very iconic to this. The crit multiplier is just stats. It's just stats at the end of the day. Double strike, double shot, physical and magical, 30 HP, sure. Like, once again, just stats. It doesn't have that theme to it. I don't know that the Celestial Champion necessarily has double strike and double shot and physical and magical and hit points more than anyone else. That's the thing. It's not iconic for a Celestial. It's not iconic for an Archon or anything like that. It's just stats. All in all, I love the Divine Crusader. I'm going to say I do love it. There's some tier 5s, a couple of stuff down here that aren't super awesome and don't fit the theme, but at the same time, they don't take away from it. They're just stats. They're just numbers. All in all, Divine Crusader, it's going to get a nice mark from me there. I would say B plus A minus range, decent, very decent. Probably could use a few more like really iconic pally stuff up at the top here. And honestly, this one would be iconic if it weren't for the fact that religious lore is kind of useless without it. So it's one of those things where if religious lore was more important and that was a theme here too, a smaller theme that you could eke in, that would make Divine Crusader better by comparison too, or by extension. But that's Divine Crusader. I'd say B plus A minus. Really good job on this one. I really like it. Shadowdancer. What do we got here? What do we got for Shadowdancer? So you gain the trap finding feat if you did not have it already. Each core ability in this tree, including this one, grants DCs, melee ranged, and force and universal. Now, force and universal is a little weird, but not bad, honestly. That could be a wizard tree. because that is kind of interesting, and Wizard Rogue is a very common split. Getting trap finding, really cool, because then you can actually search for traps properly. I think the big thing here is, if you can't normally, say you don't have any DCs for Disable Device, I'd like it, and I haven't seen this tree yet, so I'm going to say I'd like it if you could find a way of getting some Disable Device that would equal, say, I don't know, 2 times character level or something, to get it up to like 60s range so you could actually start to do disabling stuff, or something like that. Like, you could actually get Disable Device and Open Lock, even if you're not a rogue in Shadowdancer. That would be cool. That would change the nature of the game, because you should be able to trap if you're not a rogue. I mean, presumably, your destiny is basically your fate, so you could be fated to actually be a trapper. You could sort of mulligan, or sort of what is the word I'm looking for? MacGuffin it in, or whatever. You could actually make up a story about how you became a trapper, but having it in here would be cool. Anyway, let's go on to the next core here. Retreat to the Shadows. You gain the ability to conjure a door of pure shadow. Okay, so you can Dimension Door. That's super cool. So they kept that. That's really cool. I love that, because the Dimension Door for Shadowdancer was the coolest looking D-Door out of all of them. And yes, they needed to keep that. That's awesome. Retreat to the Shadows, you gain Evasion feat. If you have Evasion, you gain Improve Evasion. If you already have Improved Evasion, you generate less threat. That's cool. Alright, that's fine. I like that. That's really cool. Let's keep it. It fits the Shadowdancer theme. Evasion is really roguey, and at the same time, if you have everything, if you're a pure rogue, you still get benefit. It's kind of cool. I like it. Reflex saves, hide, move silently, and hide in plain sight feat. Yep, keep it, definitely. That's iconic to this tree. What do we got? Less threat from all sources, and the benefits of the Night Shield spell. That is where this should be, honestly. Not over here. Yes, okay, Shield of Light. Finally found it. So, Shield of Light gave magic missile immunity. No, this is where it needs to be, right here. That's really cool, the benefits of the Night Shield spell, because that fits so well. Shadowdancer Builders, an ability that builds tokens. So what do we got here? We've got Nightmare Lance, so this is the Lance of Darkness, or Shadow Lance, or whatever it was. Yeah, and it can blind as well, and builds an arcane charge. Cool, sure, it's a nice ranged attack. Martial Builder, Martial Charge. So this one actually is different, because that's an arcane charge. This one's a martial charge. Those two are martial charge, Shrouding Strike and Shot. So you're really going to only have one of these two, but it's the same thing as you had before, right? Yeah, just blind attack. Actually, I don't know if Shrouding Strike had a blind on it, did it? It might have, but if it didn't, it's good that it does. That's the thing that I'm saying. Every one of these attacks can blind, but one of them builds Martial, and one of them builds Arcane, which is really cool. So that actually confirms my suspicions that Shadowdancer is like the wizard force damage tree. That's really cool. Keep it, I love it. Assassinate DCs, and on sneak attack, 10% chance to gain a martial token. Perfect, excellent. Keep it as it is, because Assassinate is super iconic to Rogue, so it's kind of like the Smite Evil one over here, where that's super iconic to Pally. That's why I like that. It's not numbers if it actually carries the theme. It's not numbers to me. Then it means something. Search, Disable Device, Spot, Open Lock, and if you have Nimble Fingers, you gain +1 sneak attack. Sure, cool. Alright, awesome. Reflex saves, Armor class, Light Armor, Max Dex bonus, and Force and Universal Spell Power. I'm not saying that 3 times fast. Alright, so that one, yeah, it's, once again, it's that theme of giving extra rogue stuff to the rogue Shadowdancer, but it's also got the force damage, which is kind of cool. It's stats still, it's still stats, but it keeps it going. Meld into Darkness, 10% uncapped dodge per martial charge for 20 seconds. That's a huge nerf onto Meld into Darkness, but honestly, Meld was like, it was so good that nobody wouldn't run it. It was too good. 100% dodge for 15 seconds? Are you kidding me? It's like, no, they needed to bring that back down. But this is uncapped, so it's still stacking with whatever dodge you have. Anybody who's upset about this is just upset about not being able to steamroll through content. Now, I do understand that raid bosses are ridiculous and can one-shot most builds. So it's time to invest in some defense and not just try to one-shot things back. That's the big thing. There has to be a way of actually giving some defense to these trees that is more impressive than current, but one-shotting them back is just not the answer. It doesn't make for a fun game. I do like this change, if only they bring in something else that can eke out the defense a lot more for epics so that people can actually keep up. Shadowdancer Epic Destiny Mantle, Shadow Form. So yeah, it makes sense. So 30% enhancement to movement speed, can sneak 50% faster, your attacks gain Ghost Touch and may bypass may bypass incorporeality of monsters. I don't know why it took me so long to read that. So it can stack with anything else and grants a permanent bonus to movement speed while sneak. Okay, can't stack with anything else. So it's just 50% boost. So if you don't have that in the rogue tree, if it's coded correctly, because I know that these enhancement bonuses to movement speed were a little finicky in live, that's fine. That's not bad, honestly. But Shadow Form doesn't have the Shadow Form that it did before. That's a clear nerf from the original Shadow Form. But at the same time, it's not like ridiculous, because Shadow Form was ridiculous at 25% Incorp. It was a little insane. Okay, so it needed to be toned back. The Sneaky is also cool, and since it's a mantle, this is just a guaranteed you're always going to move 50% faster. So you can actually save some points in your standard enhancements, which I think I've actually put points into my movement speed. Yeah, 75% there. So you could save those points if you wanted and place them somewhere else. Grab some extra damage there. I don't know, some daggers for sneak attacks or potential sneak attacks there. Or even bleed into your marks if you really wanted to. I don't like the marks right now, but they might get a pass soon enough. So that's not bad. It's a nerf, but it's fine. Offhand, strike chance, and bluff, just eh. I mean, not all rogues are offhand users, so it's not super iconic to rogue itself, and bluff is not necessarily iconic either. It's just stats. To me, that's just stats. Each martial charge grants you a sneak attack die. You no longer automatically fail reflex saves on a natural 1. Epic Destinies kind of needed one of these to really work for them, because in the original Epic Destinies, it was a tier 5, what was it, Grandmaster or something like that? Tier 5, one of them. And it wasn't possible to be gotten without speccing into that Destiny. Now it's actually achievable for everybody, which means it saves up a feat slot, if need be. But it does put you into Shadowdancer, so if you're not good at that, you are sacrificing still. That's fine, it just gives more variability. At the same time, it's not, I guess it's not super amazing in terms of theme for this, but it does carry that reflex saving throws non-failure, the no-fail on a 1, into the Destinies a little easier. Destiny Mantle grants sneak attack dice and spell pen. Sure, it keeps it going. Sneak attack dice is kind of the theme for rogues, and honestly, I love sneaky dice. Let's see, I have a bunch of them. I don't know how many sneakies I have. Let's just go into general, sneak attack to hit bonus, sneak attack dice, 34d6. Yeah, it's pretty decent. So honestly, I'm not super concerned about sneak attack dice being in here. It probably won't overpower them because two-handed is silly damage right now. So honestly, getting more sneak attack dice for the rogue will actually help keep it up, and I don't see too many non-rogues and non-wizards speccing into this tree already, just from the themes that I'm seeing. Crippling Strike feat, if you already have this feat, it will deal con damage on each hit instead of strength, and +1 martial charge cap. That's kind of cool, actually. That's really cool because Crippling Strike was super meh in the old days. I got it, and then immediately swapped out of it when I had no need of it again, which was, I think, before I even entered Epics. It was like 16 or something. I swapped out of it for Slippery Mind. It was like, it just wasn't a good one, but if it deals con damage on each hit, you are actually reducing the enemy's HP as you hit them, further than you would by the damage you're doing when you're actually hitting them. So it's actually really cool. Bypass enemy dodge and enemy fort. Yeah, that's the standard Grim Precision. It was always in there. Sure. I mean, technically, yeah, you'll need that to actually do max damage, but it's numbers. To be fair, it's numbers. It's iconic to the original Shadowdancer, actually still has that already, but sure, it's just numbers. Shadowdancer Spell Focus. Now that one actually is really interesting. Why don't we go ahead and open this up? So it gives you Illusion, Necromancy, Abjuration, and Enchantment. Actually, I really like this because it only gives you 4 of the schools that you can specialize in, 4 of the 8. And those are the ones that would be shadow-ish schools, which is really cool. So keep that. That's actually really nice. Illusory Shadow that acts as a noisemaker trap. Oh yes, this is amazing. This is my favorite ability so far. This one right here. It beats D-Door. I have been waiting so long for an illusory projection. And here we have it. Whispers. Amazing. Great addition. That's an A+ right there. Tumbling while in stealth grants you a martial charge, 2 sneak attack dice, 5 to hit and damage with sneak attacks, 5 move silently, and the ability to move with full movement speed. May only trigger once every minute. Okay, so at least it's got an internal cooldown. Because I could see this one getting really out of hand. That being said, that I don't know, it seems like it's dirtily. It seems like it's just finagly, like you gotta keep it going, but it's not really a buff kind of thing. I mean, it's only got a third uptime. It's only got 20 seconds to a minute, but even that, it just feels dirtily. I don't really like the tumble mechanics should stand on their own. There should be value to tumble by itself, not to this. I don't really like that. I don't like the idea that you're gonna have to keep tumbling to keep that up, or that you're gonna have to go into stealth, tumble once, and then get out of stealth while you do things that don't require tumbling in order to gain these charges and dice and hit and damage and stuff like that. I think that's dirtily. I think that should go. It should just go. First Blood Feat now deals double its base damage, applies on harmful spell casts, and its damage now scales with force spell power. And whenever you cast an illusion spell, you gain 1 arcane charge. First Blood, I don't think I ever used that feat. Actually, that's a very interesting one. I'm actually going to check that up and see what that even is. Okay, so First Blood, melee weapons and unarmed attacks deal 50 to 300 extra untyped damage against enemies with 90% or more HP. Extra damage won't trigger twice within 3 seconds, so it's got an internal cooldown. I would never have used that before. I would never, ever have even seen that on a build before. So it deals double its base damage, applies on spellcast, and its damage scales with force spell power. So now First Blood is somehow a spellcasting thing? That is super weird. I don't know, it's super weird to me. That doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like a thing that should be. Yeah, I don't know. I think the mechanics of First Blood have to be revamped for that to actually seem like it's a thing, and to seem like it would ever benefit the melee version of a Shadowdancer. It seems like it's just specifically arcane, and then you wouldn't think about blood being a thing that arcanes are drawing. You would think that they're actually burning victims, or freezing victims, or using force damage to basically disperse a victim's cellular structure, or something like that. I don't know, force damage is weird. They've never really explained it properly. But honestly, I don't know. This one is super weird. I don't feel like it applies properly. I don't feel like it feels like Turn Undead. It really does. It feels like you now use your Turn Undead charges for, I don't know, Channel Divinity. And instead of calling it just Channel Divinity and then Turn Undead being a version of it, you use Turn Undead charges and then you Channel Divinity in this thing. It's just like, it feels like you're repurposing something that is not very good to be extremely good, but not to be the thing that it is. It loses identity, and that's a big problem to me. So I'm gonna say that's a no. I don't like the drop. I don't like this one. Shadowdancer Destiny Mantle grants you damage versus the helpless. That's just statistics. It doesn't really have a theme of that so far. I'm gonna say that's just stats. Like, that doesn't feel like Shadowdancer. Physical and magical, force and universal spell power. Stats, relevant stats in the force component, but stats. Hit to hit for sneak attacks and to hit while flanking, and then immunity to silence, quell, and blindness. That one, the rank 3 version of this is cool. That's the thing that I really like, because shadows shouldn't be able to be silenced. They shouldn't be able to be quelled or blinded. That works there. Like, the blindness immunity over here in the true seeing and immunity to blindness, that's fine here. That's fine over on this side. That's good. Right there, yes. That's good for Shadowdancer. Keep it there. Greater Shadow Form adds to your Shadowdancer. Okay, so this is the greater one, so they didn't get rid of it. Okay, so they've got Shadow Form and Greater Shadow Form now, and it's the same exact thing. But I don't know that Shadow Form actually had the natural 20 removing immunity to sneak attack. I'm going to have to check that up. You don't have to be in Shadow Form for this to happen. That part there, I would say you would have to be in Shadow Form. Like, that would be important to me. That's the only real problem I see with this one, is that you would have to be in Shadow Form in order to envelop your target in Shadow. Because you are Shadow, right? So I would say you'd have to be in Shadow Form. That's the only criticism I'd have there, but the theme, sure. The incorporeality, that might be a little extreme. 20% would be pretty extreme, and that would pair it up with the more powerful wraiths, but not the most powerful wraiths. I guess it's just a thing of, do you deserve 25% incorp for investment in this tree? I'd say it's probably splitting hairs on this one, but honestly, yeah, sure. I just say you'd have to be in Shadow Form. That's the change that I would make. Otherwise, good on him, keeping it. Crit multiplier on 19 to 20 with bows, thrown weapons, crossbows, and finessable melee weapons. It's stats. It's just stats. The weird spell is at the weird spell. Yes, I read about this one actually earlier. The weird spell is an area effect phantasmal killer. That's perfect. That's an A+. Across the board. No question, my favorite ability now. Can I say it's my favorite? Whispers and weird. Illusion spells are super awesome, and there's very few of them. But the fact that they got rid of Consume, I know that. But weird is better. Weird is so much cooler. Consume would eat, what, 5, 6 things maybe? I think it only eats 5 though, because I think it takes 2 seconds for it to charge up. So Consume only eats 5 things. Weird can kill an entire room, which could be 8 to 9 to 20 things. Like, that's super cool. It requires the ability to cast spells of those levels. That's the big thing. Okay. So you would actually have to be partly wizard to use this. That's the real big thing. That I don't know about, because it feels like Shadowdancer should just have that. So I'm going to say it's still a win in my book, but it's very wizard-oriented. Like, you could be 3 rogue at max in order to get weird. Or you would have to be Alchemist, would be the one easiest able to get it. Alchemist and Arty. So you could be an Arty and still be rogue-like, and then just have 5 levels of rogue in Capstone. But that's max. Or not Capstone, I mean tier 5. But that's max. That's the best you can hope for with that one. So you'd mostly have to be non-rogue in a rogue tree in order to use weird. And I don't like that. I don't really like that. I wouldn't add it as a spell. I would add it as an effect, an enhancement. Because honestly, rogues should be able to use that too. They're basically one with the shadows, so why wouldn't they be able to use the phantasmal killer type of thing that they've got here? Still, I don't know, it skeeves me in that one. It skeeves me. I think that it should be open a little more. It shouldn't be that this is a tree where the wizard stuff is split from the Shadowdancer, from the rogue stuff. You should be able to sort of eke them in. Like, they played it very well with Divine Crusader on that one. Anyway, spell DCs, numbers, sure, whatever. Dodge, assassinate, reflex saving throws, and dodge cap, numbers. Like, assassinate is still iconic, but it just feels like you've got your assassinate DCs down here. Where is it? Down there, yes. You've got your assassinate DCs and chance to get a martial token. That just kind of feels like a reiteration. All in all, Shadowdancer, I mean, it's got some really cool stuff in Whispers. It's got some really meh kind of stuff, which is like, you know, I guess more along the lines of the crit multipliers and the Force and Universal. And the drop, which was super weird. Like, I don't really get it. Even Linger in the Dark just feels dirtily. Like, all in all, the tree gets a B, and I think it's because it kept a lot of the good stuff from the current Shadowdancer. But I think it gets a B. This is a B for Shadowdancer. So that's about what I think about that. Primal Avatar. So this one is the iconic druid tree. Let's see what they've done with it, because there's a lot of multi-selectors in here. So follow the path of the heart. The rest of this tree's options will be determined by this choice. Grant the following ability in this one. Light. It gives a bunch of spell power, spell points, and DCs. Same thing for every one of these. They're all just spell power, spell points, and DCs. Just different types. Yeah, sure, and it's 3 different paths you can take. Now, Grow will have 3 different paths as well, which you gain the following for each core ability you take in this tree, including this one. It's just spell power? That's it? Oh, that's a real letdown for Core 2. Core 3, gain absorption against a lot of the elements you're good against, a lot of the natural elements. Whenever you cast any protection from energy spell, it grants you 25 points per level instead of 12 with no level cap. So it actually doubles the protection from energy spell with a little bit extra. I'm going to say that's a cool core. You should be able to protect from the elements better if you know the elements. I'm going to say that's cool. This first one, the first 2 are just kind of statistics and meh. This third one really saves the cores for me. Reflex, tumble, and balance, and if you're using a quarterstaff, you gain damage and universal spell power. Is this really a quarterstaff one? I don't know. It feels like the numbers are low, and it also kind of feels like this is just not a quarterstaff tree. I get that the druid might use a quarterstaff, and they're trying to entice people to do that. It doesn't really feel like that. But sure, we'll give it's kind of numbers at that point to me. Physical and magical, oh, those are really low numbers. Those are really low numbers. It's not iconic, and it's super low. That one needs to be reworked, I think. Gain a spell that builds primal charges based on your nature. So let's see here. Is it Carrion Swarm? I mean, it's a swarm around Carrion, sure, but Maybe just insect swarm or something like that. A burst of butterflies forms around the caster. They burst into flame, dealing fire damage, and can give a primal charge up to a maximum of 2. That's kind of cool, I guess. It's kind of cool. And this one is a storm catcher. Target's enemies become chilled to the bone. As the effect ends, the target will also be struck. Okay, so they take damage, 1d6 per 2 character levels in cold damage. And as the storm ends, they also are struck by lightning for additional lightning a lot more lightning damage, with a fort save for half damage. I mean, I guess these last two are cool. This one, it's cool. It's just maybe the name is a little weird. Maybe the name's a little weird, but that is definitely just nitpicking. When you sit to rest at a rest shrine, your select friend of nature visits you briefly and offers comfort. 10 sonic, 10 sonic absorption, and 3 listen. So yeah, most of these were already in here, but there's a couple more that were changed up and some spell powers. Rejuvenating Cocoon's still here. It gives 35, 75, or 150. Okay. So it actually is weaker than it used to be. You have to put all 3 points in. So that's decent. I like that they nerfed it, but honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, oh yes, and the cooldown's 12 seconds. Was it 15, 12, 9, I think? Yeah, I think that was the way it was in the old days. The only thing about Rejuvenating Cocoon is they gotta fix that bug if they haven't, where the temp HP, if it goes away, then you lose the healing portion. That's gotta be fixed. The healing portion's gotta be its own separate thing. Spirit Boon, Body, and Mind, I'm assuming, yes. So it's just +1 to your mental or your physical stats. Considering they got rid of those whole lines, but then they've got 3 stats in each one, I think it's fine. That's cool. Gain a spell that expends charges based on your nature. So Reborn in Fire. A swirl of fire deals damage to characters around you and heals allies. Consumes all primal charges, and both the damage and healing are increased by 25% per primal charge. And if 3 or more are consumed, then it's doubled, and you gain Dancing Flame for 6 seconds, which is 35% uncapped dodge. Oh, looking at the shadow, the meld into darkness, that kind of seems a little weird now. It's a really good ability power-wise. I don't mind it. Shield, or Shard Storm, what's this? Acidic Poisonous Shards. And it does the same thing, right? Oh, 30% to your max HP is temp HP. Okay. So if you consume 3 or more charges there, then you also gain Shard Deflection, which gives you that HP, which is really cool. And this one, if 3 or more charges are consumed, enemies caught within are slowed massively. And this is Thunder Snow, so it's the same. It's just light. It's lightning and cold damage, but it's the same thing. Honestly, I can't argue with this. I really like the theme of that. I get that they're going for this, trifecta of spell types, and it's really kind of cool. It feels like a castery tree more than it does a druid melee tree now at this point, though. But let's see if they do anything else. Mantle of Heart. Healing spells have a chance to apply a copy of Rejuvenating Cocoon 1 to your target, which would be the 35 HP. Your Fire, Light, and Alignment spells have a chance to apply a blast of that damage type for 1d3 per character level, and all effects scale. Okay. Okay, just okay. It's a passive aura that does damage and can drop a Rejuvenating Cocoon, which is kind of cool. Cold, Electric, and Sonic have a chance to blast one target for 1d3 damage, and each element can only strike once every 5 seconds. Okay, so that's just... Oh, they're tracked separately? Really? Oh, wow, that's interesting. I mean, it's passive damage, but it's a nice twist on it. And Acid, Poison, and Force do the same thing, don't they? Yeah, okay, so that one's not really super cool, because there's no difference between Sky and Thorn, except for the damage type. Heart is the only difference. That one's fair. I like it. I don't mind it. HP, Magic Resistance, Summon Pets and Hirelings, +4 Reflex saves, and the Evasion, and some Resistance, some Magic Resist. It's a lot of stats. It's tons of stats. It's got the Evasion feat. It's the Wolf version, but it feels like they've loaded a lot into this one. In order to, is it just +10 max HP? It should be +10% or something. Something better than 10. That's weird. Each primal charge you have now grants you 2% spell cost reduction. That's kind of cool, because that can be fluctuated and it can be managed, which is really kind of neat. While in an elemental form, you gain 10 spell power, and while in a wild shape, you gain 6 magic resist. I don't know, it feels like stats. I don't think so. It doesn't feel like an improvement on those forms, it just feels like stats. A 6 heal amp, your healing spells have a chance to grant a divine charge while you are in combat. Sure, that's the healer version. I mean, the divine charges is kind of cool. It changes up the nature of the game a little bit, which is neat. I'll take it. +3 DCs for Evocation, Conjuration, Transmutation. I don't know why they didn't write out Evocation, but this is an alpha, so we're going to have to go with it. But +3 DCs, that's just stats, but at the same time, it's keeping to a theme of only 3 different spell schools, which is cool. When you rest, the spirit of a nature manifests as a unicorn and provides you with nature's blessing, plus 5% insight to max HP. It lasts until you leave the dungeon. That's pretty cool, actually. That's not bad. I like that. And it's got the unicorn theme too, so they're actually bringing in some Feywild stuff. Stepping inside a thorn spikes or entangle spell, whether hostile or friendly, heals you for 1d3 hit points every 5 seconds per character level of the spell's owner. I mean, it gives value to those spells which are usually almost entirely overlooked. So I will say that that's kind of cool. That is kind of cool, because that spell will now be valuable in Epics, where it really isn't in Heroics. Select a meta magic to improve. That just reduces cost, doesn't it? Yeah, it's all reduction of cost, whatever. Hopefully this isn't the same. Oh, it is. Is it the same types, too? I think it's the same types. It is. Those two? No. I just trash them. Just throw them out, get some more thematic stuff in here. Firelight and Positive, just stats. Summons now also benefit from Primal Avatar Destiny Mantle. When the mantle procs for them, they have a chance to give their summoner a primal charge. Okay, this still uses your spell power or melee range power to scale. That's kind of cool, so you're actually getting some benefit from having allies around now. Gain the evasion feat exclusive... Wait, huh? Wait a minute. You gain the evasion feat down here, and it's the same cost. What exactly is going on here? Exclusive from other enhancements that grant this feat. Okay, this one is just infinitely better because of all the other stuff it gives. So this one needs to go. Sorry, it's just gotta go. That is not a tier 4 either. It's not even worth it. Get rid of it. Grants you the ability to summon an elemental ally based on your nature. So that is the Dryad, I think, right? Elder Dryad, yeah, that's Firelight Healing. This one's a Greater Storm that is Lightning, Cold, and Sound. And this one is a Treant, Greater Thorn Spirit, which is Acid, Poison, and Force, using casting stats. They remain bound to their spot. That's the big thing here. Okay. So as soon as you summon them, they're stuck where they are, which is actually a good thing. I don't mind that, because then you have to bring them with you. It's a cooldown of 15 seconds. It costs you 50 spell points. So it's not bad. I'll take it. Like, that's really cool, actually. And you get to choose one of the 3, and they have so many different casting options. All right, yeah, that one's awesome. That one makes up for the evasion down below, I think. +3 to spell DCs, that's just stats. Mass Frog, they did end up moving Mass Frog here. They also moved Dire Charge, which is good. Like, oh, the hate that I've seen on this, the anger about not having Mass Frog available to everything. It shouldn't be. Mass Frog is it's either Wizards-oriented or it would be Nature-oriented. And in this case, they decided to go with Nature. I am fully on board with this. I agree. I agree entirely. So, in my opinion, good on the developers throwing this right in here. And it also scales off of Highest of Wisdom Int Charisma mod. Perfect. Excellent. Excellent. Keep it that way. Gain an enhancement spell cost reduction of 10% to all spells. Well, here's the thing. Don't we have a lot of those on items? Like, there's a ton of items that do that. I don't know if that's tier 5 worthy is the thing. It could be in the enhancement tree, but I would put it like tier 2, tier 3 maybe. Tier 5? Ugh. That seems like a little weak for tier 5. Otherwise, like, I could see an enhancement for that because we don't really have a lot of versions of that. It's just I would throw it lower on the tier list. Reduces the cost of Intensify spell meta magic. It's just meta magic. These 3 can go. We don't... The meta magic cost reduction, I get what they're going for with that, but we've got a lot of those in the enhancement trees, and honestly, at this point, we should be doing something epic, and this doesn't feel epic, these 3. Whereas this could also go Evasion Feat. Other than that, like, Primal Avatar isn't super bad. It's very caster-oriented, I think. I don't think it's very melee-oriented at all. It's a B-, I think. I think that there's some good stuff in here. I think there's some really good stuff. The multi-selector stuff that you've got all over the place in here is great. Multi-selectors everywhere. Some of them, this core, for example, are just not enticing. They're not interesting. They're just numbers. But it's like the idea of the multi-selectors, it's wonderful. And keep them in here, and that's cool. I love it. The B- is really coming from the fact that there's a lot of junk in here, too. Like, that's really cool, the Thorns one. But then you've got just spell power. You've just got spell power there. You got a second evasion feat in the same tree. You've gained an enhancement point cost reduction. It's just there's a lot of filler and a lot of clutter. This tree feels very cluttered. It feels very filler-esque. And that's why I would say maybe prune it down some. It feels very filler. We'll go right on to Fury of the Wild because that one is the most powerful, in my opinion. The most powerful tree right now in live. So it's got to be tackled next. So Die Hard. You gain the Die Hard feat, 20 HP and 10 melee power. Die Hard is kind of barbarian-esque, so I will accept that. The HP and the melee power, that's kind of like what the other trees have already had, which is just stats. The first core, I'm kind of going to dismiss for the most part. They're just stats. But there's some cool things hidden in some of them, like the Die Hard feat. Yeah, that's sure. Why not? It's not one you really think about, but it is kind of cool, and it's iconic to Barbarian. They get it in one of their trees. I think it wasn't Ravager, was it? Was it Frenzied Zerk? I'm going to have to look at that, but I'm pretty sure it was Frenzied Zerk. But they get Die Hard in the tree, and it is pretty iconic to them. 100 unconsciousness, 20 HP, 10 melee power. That... it feels like it should have more value than it does. It just doesn't feel like there's enough in there. It kind of feels like the Primal Avatar one that we dealt with just now, actually, where it was just increases on the stats. It's just these are higher stats than what the Primal Avatar had, so it's a little better in that regard, but it's not really super iconic. The unconsciousness range thing, I think that there should be more value placed upon keeping you standing than getting you back up after you fall. Okay, so it's basically more of the same. Okay, so yeah, this whole enhancement line, like the first one, Die Hard feat, cool. They're trying to keep the unconsciousness range thing going to make you basically unkillable when you're beaten down. But like, Barbarians should have a way of getting up. They should have a way of just standing and staying up. I just feel like this is, it goes against Die Harderist though. That's kind of funny. It's kind of neat. It's kind of quirky. But I feel like this goes away from the whole theme of what Barbarian is, which is he's basically unstoppable on rage. Like maybe if the second one was, while you're raging, you know, and you are knocked below 0 HP or whatever, you would normally have been knocked below 0. You instead get a second wind that lasts for 15 seconds. And if you can't get above 0 HP in that time, or not even 15, like 5 seconds, let's say 5 seconds, you get a second wind. And if you're knocked below 0 and you can't get above 0 during that time, you're instantly killed. But if you can, you're not even knocked over. Like, that wouldn't interrupt you at all, and it would kind of feel more like the Barbarian. It really feels like you're not able to be knocked down. You're not able to be taken out. You're too angry to fall. It just feels like Die Harder and Die Harderist are just more of the same. So maybe that should have a look taken at it. Acute senses, your dodge cap is increased in fort and reflex and will saves versus traps. It's sort of a thing for Barbarian, because they do have that. It just, it doesn't feel like it's super impactful, I guess. It feels like that's not going to do all that much for Barbarian. He's going to be able to run through traps, sure, but, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. It's just numbers to me. Select a melee attack that builds charges. Let's see here. So we've got Adrenaline. That's 25% increased damage and increases critical threat. So this is what they did with the Adrenaline and Adrenaline Overload, huh? And they're probably going to have, yeah, because I think they have bonuses and stuff to that. Quick Cutter, it's using the Unbridled Fury icon, if I remember. When you use this attack, you gain a Primal Charge and gain the effect Quick, which is plus 2% dodge. If you use this skill again while Quick is still active, you instead apply Cutter to your target, which is 2d6 Bane damage per character level, every 2 seconds and stacks 3 times, with a duration of 24 seconds. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's kind of, you've got a multi-selector here. You got a couple of things you can really do. The Adrenaline is probably going to be the go-to pretty much every time. Fury of the Wild has been turned into a melee tree at this point, and it's got a cooldown of 8 seconds, which is actually a little higher than the Adrenaline right now, which is good, because Adrenaline right now is super broken. Honestly, I think Adrenaline's still going to take precedence over Quick Cutter, but it's still cool. Both of them still feel very Barbarian. Trip DCs and while wearing medium or light, plus 1 additional bonus to trip. It keeps you in your armor. It's really good there. Let's see here. Mantle of Fury. You deal increased damage against the helpless. You also take a lot more positive energy healing every 15 seconds. So this feels like a combination of a Barbarian helpless one plus the what was it? Oh my goodness. The metabolism, fast metabolism one. Yes. and it scales up with 100% of positive spell power or 200% melee power, whichever one is higher. That's kind of cool. You can sort of eke into both, which is really neat because barbarians don't really have much use for positive spell power. But I think you could probably get your positive spell power way higher than 2 times your melee power. So I think if you really spec positive, you could get a lot of healing out of this. I think the idea of Mantle of Fury, the name probably needs to be changed. And the icon it's octagonal, so it kind of misleads you a little bit. But that's just alpha stuff. I'm not super concerned about that. They'll probably fix that as they go through. I think the name Mantle of Fury probably needs to be changed just to stop confusion with the item, which is pretty iconic at this point. Instead of Mantle of Fury, maybe Mantle of Rage, or Mantle of Hate, or Mantle of Anger, or something like that. There's probably a bunch of different synonyms you can add on to that. But Mantle of Fury just kind of seems a little weird. Enduring 6 physical resist, I mean, it's twice what you had in the Primal Avatar, but it's still stats, just stats. You have a 3% chance to get a primal charge with each melee attack. Now, we haven't seen one of those yet, just to gain it with melee attacks, which actually doesn't really, it doesn't make me feel like this is overused. Therefore, if it stays just in this tree, that's fine. 3% is probably pretty balanced. I might go as high as 5% chance, like a Vorpal chance kind of thing, but that might just be a matter of semantics. It's just numbers at that point. But it's kind of cool if it stays in this tree. Nearby enemies take sonic damage per character level and are shaken. You and your allies gain a primal bonus to all physical attributes, which is Strength, Dex, Con, per primal charge that you have for 30 seconds. And the damage dealt and buff-debuff durations are increased by 50% per primal charge consumed. Okay. So if you have 3 or more, you triple this bonus and you confuse all nearby enemies for 3 seconds with no save. Okay, that's not bad, actually. I really do like that. I think that's super cool, actually. That one is basically, it's replacing the current Primal Scream, which is like a morale bonus to Strength and Con, and I don't think it rages you, actually, because that would be terrible. But it's really cool, and I was talking with RoboGogo, actually, earlier. A buddy of mine who tends to come on the channel sometimes. And we were talking about fear effects and shaken effects and confusion effects going into the barbarian playstyle, and this is exactly what we were talking about. So it's really kind of funny to see this laid out as is. This is a really cool option. This alone is a really cool option, and it feels super like everything so far other than maybe the physical and magical has kind of felt really barbarian right now. So I'm liking the way this tree is going. You gain the Barbarian Rage feat, adds uses of Rage. Yeah, just yes. Just all yes. Probably I would throw that in the tier 1 and then just bring this up to a tier 2 and increase the physical resistance, because Barbarians kind of need a little bit. But super much yes. Your primal tokens now grant +1 to hit and damage. That's just stats. I'm not super concerned about that. A charge attack that requires a melee weapon and increases crit multiplier. And if used while you are raging, the cooldown of this ability is reset immediately, allowing you to use it a second time. And it can only trigger once every 10 seconds. The reset, I mean, in this case. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to think about it, and I don't mind it, honestly. It feels super iconic. It feels like you're just zerging through, and you can hit one target, run right over to the next one, another caster, for example, and immediately taunt them, and something like that. And you could get both aggroed onto you. I like this. I really do. I really like this tree so far. This one's working out well. Weapons you wield bypass silver and cold iron damage reductions, and you get an extra primal charge cap, or +1 primal charge cap, so 1 more potential primal charges if you've built them up. Do they feel like a silver and cold iron damage reduction type of guy? I can sort of see it, yeah, because there's like the Occult Slayer element to a barbarian. I can see it. I can actually see that. It feels like this might be closer to a paladin thing, but gird against demons, maybe gird against weird, and then use it as just cold iron damage reduction bypass. I mean, it could be semantic. I could just be mincing right here, but I think that it feels sort of right, but not quite right. So that one's iffy to me. That one's iffy. I kind of like it, but at the same time, it might need to just be tied a little better into the Occult Slayer and what that means. Choose between strike through, offhand, or double strike bonuses, and there's your double strike, your offhand, and your strike through. It's just stats, and I think people already know my opinion on strike through. Maybe they do. I don't know if I've actually mentioned it in a video. I don't like strike through. I think it's a broken stat. I think it's very bad for the game. It feels like strike through does too much work for you. And it feels like that's one of the big components for why two-handed is severely overperforming at the top level. So I'm going to say I don't really like it, but it's stats as well. So at best, it's meh. At best, it's meh. If you're not raging and are currently out of rage charges, you have a 30% chance to gain a charge of rage whenever you gain or spend a primal charge. Super cool. Eternal rage. Super cool. And it's not like adrenaline rage increases that give you back charges that. Because Eternal Rage, I think, was giving you adrenaline charges before. And now this one gives you actual rage. Super cool, keep it going. Choose between Brute Strength or Accuracy and advantage with certain natural spells. Let's see here. +1 Strength or Raging, Adrenaline is increased by 25%. Yep, that's a thing. And +2 Attack bonus. At rank 3, the effects of the Ram's Might and Animal Growth are doubled for you. It would be a thing. I wish that Barbarian could actually get access to animal growth, that they could be treated as an animal in their trees. That would actually be really cool if you could be treated as an animal, as a Barbarian in your tree for the purposes of spells. That would be super cool, and you could be like animal/humanoid, or just change you completely to an animal, and then you get the bonuses of animal, which wouldn't be that much different than humans, but you would be able to benefit from certain spells, and you would be immune to like hold person and stuff, which is really cool. If you could do that, that would be super awesome in the Barbarian trees themselves. And then this would have more value for a Barbarian because you could be animal growth based upon your enhancement trees in Barbarian. That being said, I think that easily Furious beats it. I don't think that Spirit of the Beast comes close, scaling-wise. Once again, if you could be an animal bear, then animal growth would actually be worth more to you at that point. And then it would just be a match between either Adrenaline's damage bonus increase or extra strength baseline, which would actually be a much closer comparison, in my opinion. Otherwise, like, that's still cool. It's very obvious which one I would take and probably which one a lot of people are going to take. That's a scaling thing. When you drop below, in this case, 40 HP, you immediately heal for positive energy healing and continue to do so every 6 seconds until you're over 40%, and it scales. I like that. I really kind of, it still feels super Barbarian. It feels very Zergy. It feels like you're not slowing down for anything. You just rage the pain away. I kind of like, I love this tree. This is becoming my favorite tree by far already, and I'm not a Fury of the Wild guy. Reduce all damage except untyped by 25 for 5 seconds after you consume a rage charge or use Primal Scream. You also apply the effects of a heal spell to yourself, scaling by melee power. Oh, that's super, like, it feels more like rage. You're raging the pain off. This is such a cool tree. I'm a little disappointed in the cores, but I'm really loving the tiers. Oh. Choose between Enhancing Adrenaline or Fortification Bypass and bonuses to animal form in 2-weapon. Or is it two-handed? It's 2-weapon. So 2% Fort Bypass at rank 3. So you get 3 charges of that, so 6% Fort Bypass. And plus 6% damage with all attacks. Like, I don't feel like it scales well enough. Adrenaline now knocks people down for 4 seconds at rank 3. And I'm assuming that's no save. It just doesn't feel like the primal side is keeping up with the adrenaline side. Like, that's the thing. You can get crazy adrenaline hits. Or you could just go ahead and get a bit of extra damage output. Like 6% damage and 6% Fort Bypass, so we'll say 12% damage. Plus you can potentially crit on them, but that's only at a 6% chance, so it's not a big deal. Even if you said 12%, you're comparing it with 25%, which is over double. I don't know that I like both of these. I like the multi-selector of it, but the overwhelming force and the adrenaline stuff is so much better. I think that needs to be scaled. I think that's a numbers game. That's something for the developers to think about. It just needs a scaling change. Against shaken and feared enemies, you gain +3 to hit and damage, as to your Fury of the Wild. Destiny Mantle, enemies that strike you in melee range become shaken. Okay, that's more of that fear stuff. I'm fully on board, and it's giving a theme to it. There might need to be a little more of this theme, and I'm going to see if there is a bit later, but it's giving a theme. Fort Bypass, your Fury of the Wild Destiny Mantle grants you an additional 15% extra damage to helpless targets. Sense Weakness. So it's just basically a complete rework of Sense Weakness. It gets rid of a lot of that clutter stuff and just keeps the damage to helpless and a bit of fort bypass. Maybe if this is combined with the animal stuff for this multi-selector, then it's going to be good, but it feels like it's just not enough. It's just not high enough. You gain the improved trip feat. Cool. Just cool. It keeps, like, the first thing that was the trips DCs down here, and we haven't seen anything up to tier 4. I think maybe if we're going to have the trip feat or the trip theme in Fury of the Wild, it's going to have to be a little more pronounced than this. But improved trip gives more DCs. It's kind of cool, I guess, and nobody else has had that so far. Every 2 Wilderness Lore grants a +1 primal bonus to max HP, +1% primal bonus to max HP. Once again, it's one of those lore things where the lore itself gives nothing, it's just stuff scales it up. Stuff works off of the Wilderness Lore. But I feel like the Wilderness Lore should do something by itself, and then this could actually have more value by that. Gain 50 HP and 10 Fizzy, double these bonuses if you have the Harbinger of Chaos feat. Another one I just don't know. What is the Harbinger of Chaos? Okay, so Harbinger of Chaos is, with weapon and unarmed attacks, you deal 1d20 Bane damage against all targets and an additional 2d20 Chaos against Lawful, which scales. So, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it doesn't have a Chaos theme. This whole tree doesn't have a Chaos theme. It has a Rage theme, which you could say the Rage is the Chaos theme. But I think there needs to be a connection there. There needs to be a connection made. Otherwise, you know, it's still just stats at the end of the day. Scarred by Chaos is still just a stat thing, but they could bring in some theme if they tied Harbinger of Chaos into this tree a little better. Or Chaos, the theme, into this tree. Wade through, is that the same thing? 2% double strike, 3% offhand, 10% strike through. So it's just a higher scaling version of the same. Meh. While 2-weapon fighting, 2-handed fighting, or while in animal form, you gain crit. So everything's getting a crit multiplier increase these days. That's just stats. So what do we got? The Great Leveler. +6 weapons, 16 crit threat range. You stop in place to create a shockwave that blasts all enemies in a small narrow cone, and the size of the cone increases with primal charges. And applies a trip to all enemies. I mean, yeah, that's super cool. It's still got the trip thingy. There's still just a little too little in the trip, in the theme of the trips to actually matter. And it's kind of emulating Adrenaline Overload. It kind of emulates Adrenaline Overload in the critical threat range increase. Basically a guaranteed crit area here. I would like it. I do like it, actually. It's just I feel like we need more trip stuff in here. I feel like we haven't got enough trip in here. Maybe even getting rid of Gird Against Demons or this strike through stuff here. Get rid of that and put something else in one of those spots that is trip oriented would make it feel more trippy as a tree. Or just have something in the bottom here, maybe one of the extra 3 cores that we don't have here that we're missing. That would help it along too. Anyway, that's Fury of the Wild, though, for the most part. I really love this tree. I'm going to give it a solid A across the board. Fury of the Wild feels barbarian. They really captured the theme on this one. I'm going to give it a solid A, just because there are some things that just kind of feel like super meh, like the, I don't know, statistically speaking, the Primal Force, the Barbarian doesn't feel like an animal. It feels like they might be trying to throw a couple things in here. Too many. Like, they're trying to make Barbarian feel like animals. They're also trying to make them trippy. They're also trying to make them fear-mongers. They're also trying to make them, like, really fort bypassy. There's just a lot of stuff. And then there's just the basic stuff like strike-throughs and offhands and double strike. And then this Harbinger of Chaos thing that they just kind of tacked onto the top, which doesn't feel like... It feels like they're trying to throw too much in here. I would get rid of one of the themes, focus the Barbarian a little better. I would say get rid of Harbinger of Chaos because it just doesn't suit it. It doesn't feel like this. And maybe this Demon Bypass, Demons and Devils Bypass. I would think that if we got rid of those and just started focusing things a little more on the trip and on the helpless damage and on the adrenaline, that things could be a little better and it could eke over to that A+. It could be a perfect tree. But right now, like, I'm still super enthralled with it. It's just, there's a couple of things. And I think those couple of things really matter. So Legendary Dreadnaught, here we are. We're 4 trees through. I'm just going to go ahead and swap this up to the final one, which I think was it Gmoth? Yes, it was Gmoth. So we'll do Legendary Dreadnaught and we'll finish with Gmoth. Alright, so Legendary Dreadnaught. You are immune to fear. Each core in this Legendary Dreadnaught tree grants max HP, melee power, range power. Immunity to fear, kind of cool. It feels like you're a Vanguard, so I'll take it. I'll take it right off the bat. +2 attack and damage with all weapons. That's cool because I think the fighter should actually just be able to swap any weapon in at any time and have the benefits of it. That being said, it's still just numbers, but it's all-encompassing, and the fighter is an all-encompassing tree, so it still kind of has that theme if you really go with it. 15 physical resist, thick-skinned, just stats. Technically, physical resistance is the fighter thing, so it's stats in a proper way, but everybody gets physical resist. It's just stats. Tactics DCs. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Lean into tactics. Please lean into tactics on this tree. Tactics and action boosts. I haven't seen this tree at all, so this is all fresh to me. Please do that for me. I'm keeping that right now, though. That's good. Pick a melee range attack that builds martial charges. Now, these don't have any, they don't have any thumbnails on them, but we're going to read them anyway. So, the range attack +2 weapon on hit target gains a stack of terror. So, what is terror? I don't know. Do they have anything? I think they're going to have to go into what terror is. That's the thing. I don't see terror on here, so that's going to be important. Now, mind you, he's eating a little bit off of the Fury of the Wild tree with the fear debuffs. But let's see if they do something different with it. Legendary Dreadnaught Destiny Mantle. Every 3 seconds while this mantle is active, nearby enemies gain a stack of terror. Alright, so I'm sure we're missing something. Fearless, Weapon Master, Thick Skin. There's got to be something in here that tells us what terror is. Maybe we'll figure it out. Increase to maximum HP, that's just numbers. Activate an action boost, grants +1 to all ability scores, +3 at the max level for the duration of that boost. Yes, perfect. That's great. They're going action boost, I hope they would. Power attack grants extra damage while active. Sure, I would say not even 1 extra damage, but make it a percentile, like +2%, +4%, +6%, like a real big modifier. You need a big number modifier. So epic power attack should be giving epic power. That should matter. Double strike, double shot, just numbers. Just numbers. Positive and negative heal amp, just numbers. Let's see here. Pick a melee range attack that spends martial charges. So you have +1 crit threat range and multiplier with this attack. On hit, the target must make a save or take the effects of the Sunder feat, and must also make a separate save and take the effects of the Trip feat on a failure. The DCs for these are increased by 2 for every martial charge. Okay, that's super cool. And that's, I'm assuming melee and range, they've got 2 different options. Yeah, that's super cool. I like that. You're dropping both potentially on them, debuffing both, and it's highest ability score. So you can actually say that, because people were going up in arms about this, and if you did, you should really be ashamed of yourself, honestly. But people were going up in arms about this because they were talking about how charisma-based or wisdom-based X character class would never be viable in epics. First of all, this is already telling you that that's wrong. And second, this is a big deal. Now, actually, just for the second here, maybe I'll just go ahead and throw some points in there. And yeah, we'll see how high this weapon mod gets. So it goes up to +6 weapon mod. That's not bad. And I think that's the only increase, is it? Yeah, it's the only increase, so it's just an increased power of the attack. But lay waste is super cool, and it goes off of highest ability score. So calm down, everybody. They're not ruining the game. I think they're going to do pretty good work with this, and this is a pretty cool ability. I like this. I think everybody should just give them a chance to try and eke things out and make it work, because I think this is going in the right direction. I think that the DCs of tactics are, well, tactical abilities right now are pretty meh. Let's be real. They're completely, not garbage, but just meh. The epic ones are good. The heroic, like Trip and Sunder and Stunning Blow, are terrible. So I think the big thing is we need to give them a chance. We need to give them a chance to prove that this is a good ability, and I think the devs are on the right track. I think they're really doing the right thing here, and I'm really, really pleased with this ability. So what do we got? Additional action boosts while rest, uses per rest, rather. Sure, yes, more action boosts, keep it going. Keep it going. What do we got? This one I was kind of thinking was crit, yeah, and it's just critical hit damage before weapon multipliers. Yeah, technically, fighters are known for criticals, but at the same time, criticals are a little out of control. Maybe, it's just, to me, this would be best stats. That's the best it's going to be, is just stats to me. Each martial charge you have grants +1 to tactical DCs. Keep it going, yes, oh yes, keep it going. While in your Dreadnaught Destiny Mantle, activating an ability boost adds 1 stack of terror and the shaken effect to all enemies in range of your mantle, +1 martial charge cap. The only thing here is, what is terror? Are we seeing that in here? So we don't quite know what terror is, and I think that's really indicative of what this tree can provide. If we know what terror is, we'll know what we're actually doing with this. We're on to Armor of Dusk. +6 armor class, max dex, -3 armor check penalty to skills. Yeah, it's cool. It keeps up with the fighter thing. I think we need to put an ability here, really. We need one more thing here. We need to fill these trees up. That's a big deal. That to me is not really just numbers, because I think that's kind of fitting for a fighter to have that armor class and max dex bonus increase and reduce the penalty to skills. It's not super great, but it's just numbers at that point. Like maybe tier 3 or rank 3 in this would have something else like, I don't know what they would have. Like your armor now has something. Your armor now grants the effects of, I don't know, blurry to emulate the idea of having stronger armor and being able to use it more effectively than anybody else. Like that could be a thing. And then you could have auto blurry in this tree, but even then I don't feel like that fits. Maybe that's something to add into the comments. If anybody's got anything on that one, that might be an interesting thing to mention, is how might we improve Armor of Dusk, and maybe even just discard the name. How might we improve this talent particularly at tier 3? But anyway, I'm going to move along. I think it's kind of fitting. I'm going to move along to the next one here and see what we've got. Activating a tactical feat has a chance to grant you martial charge. Yes. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Keep it. Keep it. Excellent. All right. Wrath is awesome, and it keeps to the theme. That's what we're looking for. We're keeping to the theme. Alrighty, just keep it going. Your weapon attacks against creatures that are afraid, shaken, or have +5 stacks of terror. Okay, so terror is just a stacking debuff? Is that what it is? Your weapon attacks against creatures that are afraid, shaken, or have +5 stacks of terror. Add 1 stack of vulnerability. Okay, so every time you hit somebody, if they've got a bunch of terror on them, you're going to add damage increases. Okay, that's kind of cool. Strike with fear as opposed to strike without fear. Wasn't that the first one here? Or is it fearless? Okay, I thought there was a strike without fear. It's cool. I like it. It's cool. I like it. Oh, we'll keep that. Well, in Dreadnaught, Destiny Mantle physical resistance rating, and your mantle also harms nearby enemies, dealing bane damage every 3 seconds. For non-bosses, this damage is equal to 1% of their current hit points per stack of terror they have. Okay, so terror is finally starting to come into the fray here. So all the terror that we're building, it's now actually doing stuff in tier 4s. And it's doing a lot of stuff. 1d6 bane damage per stack of terror. Okay. So that's not super bad. That's okay. That's coming to the fruition. That's good. I like it. Dealing extra damage to helpless. Here? Really? In Legendary Dreadnaught? I don't think that works. I don't think it works in Dreadnaught. I think that needs to be pushed. All that helpless damage needs to be pushed over to the bully that is Fury of the Wild. Right here, I just don't feel like it. Well, you have an action boost active. Your weapons gain +1 weapon attack. Yes, keeping the action boost theme. Action boost, fear, those two seem to be the things here. Action boost, fear, and tactical. And they're keeping it very focused. And that's great. That's perfect. Alrighty. Legendary tactics, increase tactic DCs. If you have tactician feat, you also gain 5 physical and magical resistance. Tactician feat, well, that one's just +2 tactical DC. So that's the first one, is it? Oh, it requires a cap destiny, so it's a destiny feat. Okay, that's fine. It keeps to the theme, I think. The physical magical resistance, honestly, if it were up to me, I would bump that up, like 5, 15, 25. That's how I would actually just make it really valuable to top tier. People would take that. But even then, maybe like the tactical DCs are... The tactics we're using, Trip and Sunder, are single target. So maybe instead, at tier 3, you could just make them AoE. And then they would affect things around them, which would be really cool too. Maybe there's something like that in there. Let's check it out. Wait, is this Terror? Just a second. Let's close that. What do we got here? So this is actually Terror the attack. Terror shot, +4 attack. Attack is considered an automatic crit. And same with the melee. Terror shot, Terror strike. I think the Orc already has an automatic crit terror attack. So this one's already basically a racial ability. And a 20-second cooldown. Oy. Now mind you, they got the cooldown in here twice. Maybe get rid of one of those cooldowns. Just keep the one up the top here, and get rid of the one that's in the description. It's a small nitpick, but you know, it's something just to make it look a little more fleshed out. But single target melee attack +4 weapon attack is considered an automatic crit. I guess the thing is, do we really want to see automatic crits in this one? Because that adds a new dynamic to this tree. I don't know. I mean, criticals are kind of a fighter thing, so I guess technically yes. It's just I don't know. I'm really not feeling. I'm not feeling the name. I'm not feeling the ability. I'm not feeling the theme of the whole thing. I don't know about this one. I feel like it should be doing something with the terror stacks that we're throwing onto people, with these stacks of terror that we're getting with the mantle here. I don't feel like it should just be an automatic crit attack. I feel like it should be more. It should be less of the automatic crit and more, hey, if you've got an enemy with like 5+ stacks of terror on them, you get an automatic crit and this weapon attack deals double damage. Like, that would be a thing. It would make it super amazing, but you'd have to build to it or something like that. And that's just a personal take on it, though. It doesn't feel like thematic to this tree. Well, in your Dreadnaught Destiny, hitting enemies with your weapons has a chance to regenerate an action boost charge. Does not stack with alchemical conservation and draconic reinvigoration. So, draconic reinvigoration, is that supposed to be for the draconic tree, the Epic Destiny? It might. I don't know. They haven't got that one out yet, so I'm not sure. But hitting enemies with your weapons has a chance to regenerate an action boost charge. I'm going to say that's super cool. I'm going to say that right off the bat, keeping those action boosts going, and that is probably a tier 5 ability. Let's be real. That's really good. We'll keep it. Dusk Surge. Yeah, we'll keep that. That's super awesome. Dire Charge. Yes, this is where they threw it. And there's only one rank to it, and it's +2 weapon damage with a chance to be stunned. Stun DC is 20 plus highest of your physical mod plus stun bonuses. 12-second cooldown. I agree. I agree with putting that there. That is a fighter thing. Throw it in there. I agree with it entirely. Overpower. Select a boost to bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. Okay, so this one gives you a multi-selector crit. I kind of expected that, because we hadn't seen a crit increaser yet. Overpower is just a multi-selector crit booster, so you can choose which one you get. I would say you get a +1 crit bonus to all weapons. Like, for fighter, it shouldn't be specific. You're only going to get one tier 5 Destiny. Fighter should not be specific. Give them all of them. I know it seems overpowered, but you're only using one weapon at a time. Or 2 weapons if you're dual wielding, but if you're going to be fair, dual wielding is not going to be so broken by having a short sword and a long sword in hand. I don't think it's going to bust the game. I think we're fair to say that it's probably fine. And I think that fighters should just be allowed to have +1 to all of them. And honestly, if it were up to me, this 4th one here, now that I think about it, and this is going to be an area of discussion as well, so if you've got something good to add to this spot, by all means, throw it in the comments there. I'd love to talk about this. But in this spot here, now that I'm thinking about it, something really cool would be if you have the improved critical feat, or an improved critical feat, it now applies to all weapons. That would be super cool, because, once again, you're not going to be able to break that very easily. You have 1 or 2 weapons maximum. Your fighter should be able to use improved crit bludgeoning with a shield and improved crit slashing with his sword. That's a thing that he should have. He's a master of arms. He should be able to master every armament, right? Maybe I'm wrong. But if you think I'm on the wrong tangent there, or just not going in the right area, throw it in the comments and let's get this discussion rolling. Anyway, that is the legendary Dreadnaught tree. So that's number 5. That is number 5 of the trees that we've dealt with out of 7. This video is going to be a long one, I'm sure. Anyway, so legendary Dreadnaught, how would I grade this? I think it's fair to give it an A- because it does have the theme and it keeps to the theme for the most part. I just think that there are certain things that just don't, like Terror, I don't think works with it. Dusk Surge, Dusk Surge is amazing. Legendary Tactics, it just feels like it doesn't scale up very well, and if you have the Tactician feat, it doesn't feel like it gives more benefit for each level. So maybe it's a scaling issue here. And well, first of all, it doesn't have one of the abilities there, so that kind of loses something right off the bat. And it also kind of loses a little bit in things like Armor of Dusk, where it just doesn't feel like this is epic. It feels like this is just stats. Right there, Physical and Magical, I think it is. Where is that? Oh, this one didn't have it. This one had the HP. Yes, that was the one. And the HP, it's good, but it's not amazing. Like, that probably would have gone into the Fury of the Wild tree before Fizzy and Magi for them. Something like that. Power Attack just doesn't feel like a good scaling option. Double Strike and Double Shot, that just kind of feels like it's everywhere at this point. There's a bunch of things that aren't bad for the tree, and that's why it's not getting like a B or lower. It's just that they're not better for this particular tree than other things. Like, you could get double strike and double shot, or you could get, I don't know, spell resistance or something. And it wouldn't feel like either one is necessarily Legendary Dreadnaught. Neither one really feels like double strike feels more like Legendary Dread, but it also feels like anybody could do that. A rogue would probably have better double strike than a fighter, because double strike is really just hitting again, and rogues are fast attackers. So I don't know, it gets an A-, I think. I think that's the fairest we can give it. It's a decent grade still. It can use a little bit of extra work. But I've already gone over what I think should be done in it, and for what I haven't, I'd love to see what you guys have to say on this. If we could just, keep it to the tree and not whether or not they've ruined the game by throwing Dire Charge in there, rather. We'll try to keep away from that element a little bit there and go ahead and do it the other way. Alright, the final leg of this journey. I think we'll start with Shiradi and we'll end with Grandmaster, so it's going to be right to left, not left to right. But, try to bear with me on this one. I'll keep it as tight-knit as I can. This video is probably going on for a long, long time so far. Alright, so here we are. This is going to be like the Fey tree, I guess. Shiradi. And we've already got Fey Favor. We've already got Gain the Magical Training. Each core ability grants range power, spell points, and force and universal. And you also get +1 epic to spell DCs. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, but it's all really spell-oriented and ranged-oriented, because Shiradi is like Fury of the Wild, except it's all ranged as opposed to all melee. And I expect they're probably going to have whatever it was, like aimed shot or whatever the substitute was for adrenaline. They're probably going to have that in here. In terms of this feat, I'm going to say sure. If it's spell-related, then it's probably good. But it feels like it's going to be range/spell. In that case, it doesn't really add so much to range that other things don't, but we'll see what we've got later. Alright, so Pierce Twilight, +5 to attack with ranged weapons, +5 spell pen, epic bonus to DCs increases to +2. This is a huge benefit compared to other trees. This is a huge benefit. Because normally you were getting like +1, +2, +3 weapon damage or something like that. It's like, this is +5 with ranged, +5 spell pen. Like, this is a big deal. And what did we get here? +1 epic bonus to spell DCs. Okay, so that one was only +1, so now it's +2. It's going to go up to +3 here. Yep, there we go. And you also get to have T, right? This is Audience with the Queen. It's now a core. So you randomly get a beneficial effect based on the type of tea you receive. I hope that's not based upon diplomacy, because, I don't know, like, technically, thematically, diplomacy works. It's just it feels like it pushes you into diplomacy to have that core. So we'll just see how that one is used, though it does feel very Fey. You would have to be diplomatic with the Fey. They are very finicky and very particular about how you talk to them. So I don't know. I feel like thematically it fits. I just feel like it's super gating. It's gating to a particular build type. Prism. This is the Destiny Mantle for Shiradi. I've been talking for a while. I can't even speak. Ranged and thrown attacks and offensive spells have a 7% chance to deal damage to a random ability score. Okay, so this is actually the Prism ability, but this has become their mantle. I don't mind this. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I don't mind it. It's kind of cool. It's already passive, but it gets that out of the way, so now you can have some active stuff later in the tree, hopefully, but it looks like there's a lot fewer active stuff in this tree than there should be. Still, I'm going to keep that. That's decent, and it's random, so really the Fae are random. The whole idea will probably be randomness for this tree, so that's fine. This will be the Chaos tree, actually, for anyone listening to this. The Barbarian Chaos or Harbinger Chaos could easily go right into the Shiradi tree right here. Harbinger Chaos would be perfect for this. Extra max spell points and force and universal spell power, that's just stats. That's just stats. Choose a spell or ranged attack that builds primal charges. Let's see what they got here. So we've got Fey Lights, which is an SLA. Enemies in a cone make a save. Versus Will, Fort, and Reflex for a Daze, Stun, and Immobilize effect. On hitting at least one enemy, generates a primal charge. That feels like... I feel like it shouldn't be Daze for a Will. The Stun is always the best one. I feel like Stun's a little much. I really do. Daze, Stun, and Immobilize. Like, the Will might be something like a Fear effect. The Fort would be the Daze, and then the Immobilize would be the Immobilize for a Reflex. I feel like stun's a little too powerful for that, because it's the best of the three easily, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they're all scaled appropriately. Immobilize and Daze I think are fair, because if you hit a Daze target, then he's going to aggro onto you. If you hit an Immobilize target, there's only a chance that he's going to be able to be free, which means you could still just pummel him into oblivion. So in terms of Phaelites, I would say the stun's a little too powerful. But I like what they're going for. I really do. It's also got the random. It's also got the randomness, because you have to hit all 3 saves, and you may apply one and not the others, depending on what the enemy's saves are. And you also generate primal charges if you hit at least one dude. So that's cool. That's cool. I like it. It's cool. It's just, I think stun's a little powerful. I think we need to avoid stun unless we're making an ability at like tier 4 or 5 that is supposed to be a stun. And pin. Let's see here. Oh yes, that one will be the slow target. And the first target hit is instead immobilized, and rank 3 plus 1 threat plus a multiplier. Okay. Okay. I don't mind it. Basically, it works off of crits, so it is still random. So it keeps to the theme, and I do like the randomness theme in this. I like the Fey element. I want to see more Fey and less just complete wild zonky random, but I do like some randomness in this tree. So I'm going to say that's cool. And they kept pin. They kept pin, which is really cool. All right, so what do we got? Good luck. Luck bonus, and then it doubles if you've got the Luck of Heroes feat. That... Oh... I'm trying to think if that actually... Yeah, I think so. I think that feels like... That kind of feels like this, yeah. Because it's not... It's halfling, so it's very luck-based, and luck is random. And Luck of Heroes, you feel... You can feel the element there. You really can, and I do like the double of this bonus. I like that it gives Luck of Heroes some good benefit there. I'm going to say this is cool. I'm going to say it's still good and random. Good Luck is just a benefit, a higher benefit of Luck of Heroes. I'm going to say, yeah, that's cool. That's a great tier 1 right there. Let's see here. Listen, search spot, and you're immune to blindness. That one's... I mean, it's just another blindness immunity, to be fair. I'm going to say it's good because the Fae do have that thing. There is the idea of the Fae immunity to blindness. Fae sight. It's just, there's so much immunity to blindness in here. Are we trying to make that condition not functional in the current day? Maybe limit it. I don't know if you want to keep it in this tree or in one of the other 2 that we've seen so far. I would say get rid of the Divine Crusader version of this and keep this one in here. That's what I would say. That's my suggestion. Increases to double shot, blah, 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 blah. And each primal charge grants stacking incorp. It's unique, it's definitely unique, and it feels like Displacer Beast / Blink Dog levels of phasing in and out of reality. Aside from the fact that it's double shot, which is just stats, the incorporeality, the stacking incorp, is cool. I'd say it's good. It's not top tier, but it's good. Healing Spring. Yes, they kept Healing Spring. Yes, this is super cool, because I always love this ability, and it always works. Costs an empathy charge. I think Wild Empathy should probably be more useful than it is. This is a Turn Undead version, actually. This is exactly what we're talking about with Turn Undead, is this idea of using Wild Empathy or Turn Undead or whatever charges in order to get, you know, the same... in order to get more benefit out of those charges. But that being said, if this was just by itself and it only had a base amount of charges, that would be fine. If it uses Wild Empathy, I think Wild Empathy should be a little better. I think Turn should be a little better. I think these things, these baseline things like, you know, the Remove Disease Paladin one, should just be better than they are. And then you don't need to use those charges for something that is better than those things are. That being said, Healing Spring's still good. Still awesome. I'd still keep it. Shiradi Power. This one is interesting. Let's check it out. Target must make a will save. Target must make a will save versus that to charm a single target. Okay. I would say or be charmed. That's just a textual error, though. It just sounds weird reading it out. So, target must make a will save or be charmed. Cooldown 25 seconds, +1 to the DC per primal token consumed. Okay. So you would spend all your primals there and then +1 DC based upon those primals spent. Okay. I think that's weak. I think it's weak, right off the bat. Charms would normally be good, except charms are not really amazing when you can kill off enemies in one shot. Then you're bringing them to slowly chip away at enemies. It just feels like it's weak. I'm going to say that, but I think that maybe the enemy you beguiled gained bonuses, gained some bonuses, then yes, it's going to be more valuable. And I'm talking like specific to this. In addition to what you would get for summoned creatures and stuff, like say you've got summoned creatures, pets, hirelings, and charmed creatures get +4 to their stats, these guys would get plus 50% damage or something. And the charm would be very slow, or very short, like it would be 10 seconds or something like that, but it would be a big deal to beguile somebody. I'd say that this is a little weak. Otto's Whistler, make a ranged attack. If the target is moving, it's forced to dance for 18 seconds. See, that's already better. That's way better already. In addition, on hit, you deal 1d6 force damage per primal charge spent. So that's already way better than your charm. Way better. So Otto's Whistler, super cool. Beguile needs a bump. It needs a bump up. It needs to be buffed a little bit to get more, to see more use, I think. That's the big thing. Empathetic Link. +3 charges of Wild Empathy. Once again, it would be like +3 charges of Turn Undead, but Wild Empathy needs its own value. Or it needs to just be like a ridiculously high DC or something like that. Like it needs to work for the thing it is doing. Just like Turn Undead. Turn Undead needs to either work or it needs to have more functionality. But right now it doesn't have either. Wild Empathy's in the same boat. So I'm going to say it works for, it fits the theme of Shiradi Champion, but at the same time it's not enticing. Well, in your Prism, your ranged and thrown attacks and offensive spells. Okay, so that's the Prism version that gives extra damage of a random type. So that's fine, I guess. It's fine. Like it's more randomness, to be fair. It's passive on your Destiny Mantle. It's just I don't know. Like I don't know why I have an issue with this one. I guess it's just a 7% chance thingy to deal 1d100 extra damage. It's a little too random. This is an example of too randomness, actually. I think that's why I'm not liking it. It's too random. It's too swingy. It's too swingy back and forth. There's a happy medium somewhere. A d100, that would be great, but maybe make it like double the chance, 15% chance of dealing 1d100 extra damage of a random type. You'll keep the ranged combat going. You'll keep it higher, and you'll make that part of the ranged damage. I don't know if you would scale it off of ranged power. Would that make it better? Would it make it so good that it is actually usable every time? Or would you just take something else? That's the thing. This might just be a numbers game, honestly. The Rainbow might be a numbers game. It seems super swingy to me. It seems like you could proc this 7% of the time, basically a Vorpal and a half. So let's say you Vorpal and you manage to get that 7% and you deal 3 damage. Like, that's not that big a deal. That's the thing that I'm talking about. It's super swingy, I think. It's too much on the randomness element. Well, in your Prism, your spells have a chance to inflict a random effect on your target. This effect scales with various things depending on their origins, including the powers. Okay. So, once again, more randomness. What list are we drawing from? That's the big thing. I mean, I guess you could have like a billion random effects happening all at once because there's so many 7% chance thingies happening. There's so many 7% chance tickers constantly going off. But is it good is the thing. That's something that I'm gonna have to see that in actual playtest to see if it's good. That's the thing. It might be super fun to just be like ridiculously swingy and just throw buffs and debuffs and all this garbage at everyone and just be super rando. But I don't know. That's the thing. I just don't know if it's good enough to account for the swinginess of it. You gain the Watchful Eye feat. If you pass within 5 feet of a trap, you make an active search check. The reason that I don't like things like Inquisitive right now is because they make it easy to get Watchful Eye. Whereas this, it's making it easy for anybody to get it technically, but at the same time, it's not super bad because that feels epic. It feels like it's a very important, like you've been doing this all your life, whereas an Inquisitive has been doing this for like, 3 months by the time he reaches level 6 to get it or something like that. He's been doing it for 3 months. It's like, how is he so good as an epic guy or so good as an elf who innately just feels like there's something off about a place? This is good here. It's not good in the Inquisitive. That's the thing. That's where I like it here. I'm going to say that's good here. Get rid of it Inquisitive, keep it here. But that's a completely different and unrelated topic, and we're not talking about Inquisitive at all. It's just, it feels like it's diminished by it being in Inquisitive already to be in here. It's diminished in the Epic Destinies because it's so easy to get in Inquisitive. Shiradi Magic select a spell school, so this will be 4 different selectors: Conjuration, Enchantment, Illusion, and Transmutation. I'm gonna say sure. That's very Fey stuff to me. All those are Fey. Yep. Attacks have Ghost Touch and you bypass dodge and fort. If you have the Holy Strike feat, double the dodge and fort bypass. Now here's the question. Why does Holy Strike relate to this? That's weird, because the Shiradi is the Fey, which is like natural. It's paganistic religions. It's the naturalistic world is the god, or is the magic. And then Holy Strike is like a religious thing. So I don't know. Maybe it's just an aesthetic. It just feels off to me. I'm going to say that one is unusual, maybe based on something other than Holy Strike. Something else. Some primal Epic Destiny feat. Some primal legendary feat, or something like that. But don't base it on Holy Strike. That's the thing. And in terms of dodge and fortification bypass and Ghost Touch, yeah, that's all cool. It's just the feat that it's basing off of that's weird to me. Alrighty, so what do we got next? So we've got Elemental Absorption, which is 10% Elemental Absorption with all the 4 elements, the 4 major elements, and +1 Primal Charge cap at rank 3. I'm going to say cool. Yeah, it just works. Natural, you're resistant to nature stuff. Sure. You gain Displacement. This effect lasts as long as the quest or until you die or it's dispelled. Resting will return it. Ooh, that's a really powerful tier 4. Move it to tier 5. I just gotta say move it to tier 5. Like, that's good. That's super good. A passive permanent displacement is too good for tier 4. Move it to tier 5. Plus 30% attack speed with thrown weapons. That's weird. It's weird to be on the Shiradi Champion, which is an all-encompassing range tree. That just feels like a wasted space for non-throwers. I would say an increase to attack speed with thrown weapons, or an increase to range power with bows, or an increase to both with crossbows. Like, that's how I would phrase that. It would have to be something for every range build. But it can't just be for throwing. Like, that's a little too niche. You gain the favorite enemy Fey feat. Now why would you do that? If you are the Fey, I mean, you would know what Fey are like. Is that thematic to Shiradi Champion? Did they build on that? I don't think they built up to this. That one might be something to build up to. Like, maybe instead you would get favorite enemy, and you get to choose your favorite enemy, because Shiradi Champion is the kind of thing, I don't know, like, it's Fey-oriented, but it feels like this is the opposite direction that they should go with that. Instead of favorite enemy Fey, maybe, I don't know, becoming a Fey, having the traits of a Fey, not being a favorite enemy. That just seems a little weird to me. That seems a little weird. It could be cool, it could be played up, but it seems a little weird. So I'm going to go with a very soft maybe on that one, I think. Dealing damage to enemies reduces their AC and fortification. Okay, cool. It's tracking. So yeah, you can visualize that as when you hit somebody, maybe they bleed. When you hit somebody, you know, they are becoming weaker, and then you're able to follow them up and keep hitting them in that same spot because you're a really good archer. That's cool. Okay, I'll keep it. That's kind of cool. That's kind of thematic. While in your Prism Destiny Mantle, gain DR 10 Cold Iron and 5 Force and Universal. I mean, the Cold Iron thing makes you a Fey, which goes against the enemy of my own thing, but it's thematic. It's thematic. Maybe the DR 10 would not be a thing. Maybe you gain some, you know, a greater number of DR, because honestly, a lot of epic creatures are hitting you for several hundred damage sometimes. Sometimes bosses are hitting you for several thousand, and you're just getting destroyed. I think the scaling, I think the numbers are a little low on that. But I think the idea is good. The idea is there. Thematically, I'm not going to dock it any grades, any marks. I think it's good. While in your Destiny, your ranged and thrown attacks and offensive spells chance to paralyze. Yep, so they kept that. That's good. Because that one's very specific. The randomness is the chance, but the effect is guaranteed. You are going to paralyze when you get that random chance. That's the kind of randomness I'm talking about that's good. It's like, it's not going to happen all the time. This is like a little bit higher chance than a Vorpal. But it's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen when it does. That's important. Range critical multiplier, yeah, so that's just the same thing. Spell DCs, just numbers, and what do we got? Every 4 Wilderness Lore feats grants you 1 dodge. You are always considered to be in point-blank shot range, 10 force and universal. That second part, you're always considered in point-blank shot range, is cool. That's super cool. The force and universal is numbers, but it still keeps to the theme. The wilderness lore feats, we already kind of know where I feel on the lore feats. And the dodge is a little too low, honestly. It's a little too weak. That would be a tier 4. That would be a tier 4 right there. We would replace it right there. Displacement would be in that slot, I think. In my opinion, that's where it would be. Displacement's a little too powerful. This is a little weaker. But point-blank shot range, yeah, cool. It just gives you a nice damage bump. It's good. Your next shot with a ranged or thrown weapon has plus 400% damage and plus 20 to critical threat range. Hunt's End. Yeah, I figured they would keep that. And that's the last ability we came across in this tree, and I figured they were guaranteed to keep it. So I'm saying, sure. It's a guaranteed crit, basically. And it's plus 400% damage, so it's like a 4 times crit. It might be a little powerful. I think it's a little powerful, honestly. We would probably scale that back maybe 300, maybe even 200%. Like, we'd scale that right back. Because it's already got a better critical threat range chance than even Fury of the Wild. And I know it's 18-second cooldown, so it's 10 seconds longer cooldown, but it's just, it feels like it's a little much. Maybe trim that down. I like the theme. I don't like the scaling, I think. But anyway, in terms of Shiradi, B+. I'm going to say B+. And the reason I'm saying it is because it is supposed to be Fey. It is supposed to be random. And it's got some of the theme there. It's just not managed to capture... It's too swingy. It's too jumpy back and forth with things like Rainbow and Double Rainbow. And some of the themes, like the Enemy of My Own, are just a little weird. They just don't feel like it. Some of the abilities are kind of, undervalued, like this one, the Watchful Eye feat. There's a bunch of stuff here that just feels like it's not working. The vision doesn't feel like it's thematically there. The attack speed with thrown weapons is way too niche to even be valuable. The displacement's kind of in the wrong spot because it's a little too powerful for where it is. And, spell DCs, stuff like that. They're all just, there's some meh stuff in there. So, honestly, I think overall B+ is a fair estimation of Shiradi. I think that's fair. Well, here we are, the final one. The final beastie of all, Grandmaster of Flowers. This is the this is the rogue. This is the monk revamp tree. So this is like the monk epic destiny. This fits the monk class. I did not ever like Grandmaster of Flowers when I was playing it. I never liked anything about it. So let's see how we do here. Let's see what they did with it, because this will be interesting. This is going to be the one I might be the harshest on. But if it's done right, and if it's done very, very, if it's very thematic to what I expect of the monk, who's basically like this martial fighter who's kind of ageless, kind of timeless, who's good against like aberrations and unnatural things, and doesn't age, just doesn't, never gets weaker, never gets frail. If it fits that theme, it might end up being our big A+ tree here. So let's check out what we got here. So you gain proficiency with hand wraps and are able to generate ki if you did not already have that ability. That's kind of what I expected. It's giving you some maximum ki in the core ability section here down below. 10 melee, 6 range, 25 maximum ki. That's what I expected. It's still thematic. I can't dock it. I'm not going to. I would never dock it because that's kind of what this tree is supposed to be about. These are stats. Let's see how they build upon it. Select a martial type. Your weapons bypass the chosen material type. Oh, now this is starting to get interesting, actually. Adamantite. You always gain 5 physical resist, or 10 if you have the discipline feat, apparently. Well, okay, that's kind of cool. So you get silver bypass. What's crystal? Your weapons now bypass crystal damage reduction. Is that a Fey thing? Do they have crystal damage reduction? I think they might. That's probably where that comes in. Cold Iron, Bieshk, and Adamantite. Like, these are anti-unnatural things. Silver is anti-unnatural. The Fey creatures that would have crystal are probably not natural to, like, the prime material plane. So I would say that's still unnatural to the monk. Cold Iron, once again, demons and devils and the Fae. Bieshk, that's like aberrations like the Beholders and stuff like that, or just weird aberrant creatures. And Adamantine, which would be like constructs and stuff, so still unnatural. So, yeah, okay. Okay, this is perfect. This is super cool. So we're already on a good foot. We're already on a good foot with Grandmaster. I'm liking all 5 of those. What do we got here? Select an alignment. Your weapons bypass the alignment. Discipline of morality, discipline of morality evil, good, and lawful. And you also gain more magic resistance if you've got the discipline feat. I still like it. I kind of, because it's got that theme of balance. The theme of balance. And it's almost like you are disciplining those who would have lawful damage reduction. You are disciplining those who had evil damage reduction. It's like bringing everybody back into parity and balance, and that's important to a monk playstyle. So far, the cores, these cores are probably the best cores of all of the trees we've seen so far. I'm going to say that right off. Stunning DCs, those are numbers. Well, makes sense. I know monk is the stunning tree, and it should be, but that's not really super iconic, I don't think. Like, they got stunning fist. So I don't know. Is that iconic? I don't know. I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna figure it out later and see if they keep to the stunning theme of this tree. So this is their Destiny mantle. It's Serenity. You may now fight with the unarmed combat style as if you were a monk. So you get to emulate the unarmed combat style. Cool. When you attack with hand wraps or begin falling, you will use the monk class animations instead of your own. You gain 10% action boost to movement speed and no longer take damage from falling. Oh, that's so cool. Yes. All right. So that is definitely monk. That is definitely thematic. You are actually becoming a monk with this stance, this Destiny mantle. You are actually becoming a monk. You even move and act the way a monk does. I'm super on board. Like, this is starting off really good. Really good. All right, let's try it out. All right, so heal, intimidate, bluff, and healing amp. I think they're just stats. Like, the heal amp is still a thing monks have, but everybody kind of has that. And heal, intimidate, bluff, like a cleric would have all those, so it's not super iconic to monk yet. And disciple studies, like a cleric would even fulfill the role of a disciple. I'm going to say that was just stats. It's fitting to the monk, but it's also fitting to any other class. But then again, that opens up the build options. It opens up the flavor and the feel of those classes. Grandmaster Builder, select a martial builder. So let's see what we got here. We've got focus inward to gain ki and 1 martial charge. You also gain spell resist with additional spell resist per point of passive ki regeneration you have. Ooh, that's kind of cool because it's like you're meditating to avoid spells, to avoid influence from magical sources. That's kind of cool. I didn't think about that. I honestly don't know if that's thematic to monk. I just think it's super cool. And what do we got here? We've got Lily Petal. Fire a bolt of pure ki outward. Yes, they had this one in the original, didn't they? Force damage per character level, scaling with force spell power. The force damage is doubled versus tainted creatures. Yes! That's perfect. And attempts to stun for 2 seconds. Okay, that's perfect. That one, Lily Petal is my favorite. Lily Petal is easily my favorite one of those two. Sorry, bring into focus. You're kind of cool. You're like a meditative monk. But Lily Petal is like the purger of outsiders and the purger of tainted creatures, as they call it. And it stuns, which is the monk theme. Alright, we're keeping that one. That's super cool. Increase to maximum ki, increase ki generation and concentration. Well, that's monk as you can get, so go for it. It's numbers, to be fair, but it's monk. Offhand strike and double shot, that's numbers. It's just numbers. You may expend a meditate charge to bring your mind, body, and soul into harmonious balance, restoring health as if you are affected by the benefits of a heal spell, as well as curing all ability damage, negative levels, and other adverse conditions. I don't know why adverse conditions is capitalized, but that's a nitpick. The Wholeness of Spirit, it's got a cooldown of 1 minute. It's not usable all the time. It's actually got a cooldown of 3 minutes at the lowest rank. It's not usable all the time, it's really good, and it is meditative. So that actually covers the base of what we found in here with the Grandmaster Builders. So I'm going to say still good. We're still on the right track. You gain the meditation feat. Yes. Boom. And I knew they were going to bring this in, because they'd already did it with the Rage, they'd already done it with the Smite Evil. They were going to bring meditation in. And meditation now recharges. That's cool. I like it. I really, really like it. Keep it going. Grandmaster Spender. So this will spend all the building up that you do. So +3 weapon, +1 crit range, and multiplier deals force damage per character level, and the force damage is doubled versus tainted creatures, so that's still keeping that going. And it also attempts to stun enemies for 6 seconds? 6 seconds, really? Because that other one, wasn't it 2 seconds? Yes. Alright, so that's just a much more powerful version. I don't know, that one kind of overshadows the other at this point. That's a melee cleave attack too, but this one's a ranged attack, isn't it? Yeah, fires a bolt outwards. So that's actually a ranged attack versus the melee cleave. I guess it's technically more of a risk to be in melee, but even then. The cooldown's 25 seconds for 30 ki. This one is cooldown of 6 seconds. Okay, so that's a big deal. That's a big difference. So that's kind of balancing it out a bit. This one channels pure ki into yourself and then projects it forward with your attacks. For 10 seconds, your attacks are replaced by ki projections that deal force damage. If 3 or more martial charges are consumed, you release a blast of pure ki, dealing force damage to all enemies nearby and attempting to stun them for 6 seconds. So it's got the stun thingy still. Very force-oriented, this tree. A lot of these trees are force-oriented. Blossom is released from your palm in a line, exploding when it makes contact, and deals damage to all characters within the force area. The damage is double versus Tainted, and it also attempts to stun them at the same thingy. The stun lasts for 2 seconds on this Orchid Blossom. Now, mind you, it's a ranged attack, so it would make sense. And it grants ki when used. I'm going to say all 3 of these are kind of cool. All 3 of them are super cool. Let's keep it. 10 spell resist, rank 3, each martial token now grants +1 to saving throws. I think it's just numbers, honestly. I don't know that spell resist is like a very iconic monk thing. I haven't played enough of them. But I think it's just numbers. Even then, it's still kind of keeping to a theme of spell resist in the tree, which I've got to at least take into consideration. Max HP and physical resist, that's just stats. Let's see, the Flickering Flame, +3 to hit damage on hit, and upon being missed, you have a 10% chance to gain a martial token. On hit and upon being missed, so that's the dodginess of it, so that's kind of cool. It may only happen once every 10 seconds, but can trigger independently and track its cooldown separately. So if you're hit, and if you're missed. So basically, if you've got enough dodge that you are actually missed in combat, you have that 10% chance, and then it procs, and then you also have the chance in case somebody hits you, and you have, you can generate another token. Regardless of whether or not you're hit or missed, you have a 10% chance, and those cooldowns are tracked independently. So you could be hit 1 second and missed the exact next second and get 2 charges. That's what it's saying. Honestly cool, though. Honestly cool. Well, in the Grandmaster of Flowers, your weapons deal 1 weapon. I know that they kept that from the original Gmoth, but it's stats. It's just numbers. Select a feat to gain access to without meeting its prereqs. So what does this mean? Lotus Blade's Deflection. Gain effects of the Whirling Steel Strike and may use long swords as if they were ki. Deflect arrows, letting you knock aside projectiles. That's super monk. Zen Archery, that's super monk. You can use longbows as well. And Prescient Curve feat and may use sickles as if they were ki weapons. That can also be pretty monk-like. I'll give them that. So honestly, not bad either way. Well centered, you may tumble through enemies and are immune to slippery surfaces and most forms of knockdown. Yes, yeah, I mean, obviously, center balance, that's a big deal. So I'm going to say that that's completely thematic, and we haven't seen that yet. Because I think was it the Rogue, or was it the Magister, the original Magister, had a center, or had a tumble bonus where you actually phased out of reality or something. But if they keep it to just Gmoth, like, that's cool. That's iconic to Gmoth, and I think that's it's more prominent for them. Bonus damage to the Helpless, that's the first one that I'm going to say. That's the first one I don't like about this tree. I don't think they should have bonuses to the Helpless. To me, the Monk is not really, it doesn't get any of those bonuses because the Monk doesn't feel like a guy who's beating up on people who are unable to fight back. That feels like a Barbarian or an Orc or something like that. The Monk feels like somebody who makes someone helpless, and then the Barbarian comes in and starts smashing them. So it doesn't really feel like a Monk thing. It doesn't feel like somebody who would have the discipline and the martial acumen to be able to, fight people on fair terms and still beat them. Just doesn't feel like it to me. That one's a -1 point there. Increases to dodge chance and max dex bonus with all armor, and Slippery Mind feat. I could see the Slippery Mind because of the meditation. I'm going to say that one's good. Like, the rest of it is just kind of like dodgy monk stuff, which works, but it's just stats. The Slippery Mind is kind of cool because it's very meditative. You're very in Zen. You're very, in touch with the world around you and in control of your own mind and body. Select a form of protection. So what do we got? A form of perfection, was it? Not protection? Yeah, a form of perfection, yes. You no longer fail fort saves automatically, will saves, or reflex saves. Like, that's cool right here. I think that form of perfection is cool because that is like real control. You can't fail because you know, tripped, or because you were thinking about something that threw you out of your right mind, or just because that day you ate something and your gut started rumbling. Like, you have complete control. So that's cool. Attacks bypass fort, and you have Ghost Touch and True Seeing. I could sort of see that, I guess, because the monk wouldn't just, like, look at something and true see it. No, they would actually have a sort of universal sense. They feel that thing in existence. So they don't need to be able to see it in order to hit it. They don't need to be able to see it if it's a ghost or if it's you know, displaced in some way. They can just feel its existence in the world. It's like the Force. It really is. They don't need themselves to guide the attack. They'll let the Force guide them. That's kind of cool. It feels very Star Wars-y, but yeah, it's kind of cool. Extra saving throws and taking less damage while helpless. That's kind of cool. Because you're still in control. You're still, like, meditating and still always in a defensive movement. And it kind of feels like you go with the flow of it. So you actually go with the flow of even being helpless, because you're never fully helpless. The saving throws don't really feel so much like a monk thing, but maybe, I guess. I guess it depends. Like, it's still the control thing, to be fair. So I'm gonna say that one's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Magic resistance rating cap. I mean, it's statistics. It kind of fits because the monk is going to use cloth all the time, and they've got a cap of 50 generally. It's just stats. That's crit. Yep, I figured that one would be crit right there. It's got a sword. A scattering of petals. Reduce your ki regen by 50, but you and nearby enemies are covered by a swirling cloud of petals, granting you the effects of Petal Swarm and debuffing your enemies with disorienting petals. The effect ends naturally after a minute, or when you drop enemies below 25 ki. Or whenever you drop below 25 ki. Okay. And you also have base attack bonus increase, deal 10% more weapon damage, and gain 10 PRR in armor class, and disorienting petals debuff gives enemies vulnerability to sneak attack, and they lose all their fortification, or 100% of it. Yeah, that's going to be super cool, actually. I'm going to say that right now. Like, that is the coolest monk thing to do, is just have lily petals. Have a scattering of petals. That's going to be super... Like, it's like a cherry blossom swarm surrounding you. It looks like it'll be really cool. That's super cool. That is amazing. If it looks like it's actually going to be a thing, then I'll be super into it. If it looks like it's actually going to have an animation, then yeah, it's going to be great. It's probably going to be one of the coolest abilities in the game. I'll give them that. That one's super awesome. You gain the effects of the elusive target feat, and if you have it already, it instead gives you double the chance to proc. Okay, that's actually making that feat useful. That's kind of cool. And increase to tactical DCs and passive ki generation, and while dual wielding, you gain unvorpal knockdown an enemy for 2 seconds. Knockdown enemies are helpless. Okay, so that's the first act of actually making someone helpless in this whole tree, I think. The tactical DCs are a little weird, because they didn't have a theme of tripping in this tree, which I'm kind of surprised about. Passive ki generation is for them. Yeah, so I'm going to say, like, this tree is almost flawless. I'm going to say that right now. There's a couple of things I'm a little iffy about, like the bully thing here. But overall, I'm going to say that this tree is pretty much flawless. Like, if you're going for a theme of Gmorph, you've pretty much hit it right now. I'm going to say that this tree is the A+ tree of the entire tier. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say that. I've been geeking out about this tree. Almost every ability that I came across, they're all super iconic. They're all super balance-oriented. The trip DCs, if you really want to go into that, that's the big thing. You need to actually... I think the developers really need to go just hardcore into trips on this one. Maybe even more than like the Fighter or Fury of the Wild or anything like that. Just go hard into trips on this tree. Because that is... Like, balance is essential for maintaining yourself and not getting tripped. So if they're going to do that with this balanced attacks here and actually have knockdown effects, they need to go hard into that. Other than that, like, it's still an A+ tree for what it tried to accomplish. I've only seen a couple of abilities I'm just a little iffy about, and I've already kind of mentioned them point by point. But that's the last of the 7 trees right there. I think Gmorph is probably the best one. I think closely followed by Fury of the Wild. And I believe Dreadnaught I really liked too, didn't I? No, Dreadnaught was on parity, I think, with Divine Crusader. Because there were certain elements to it that I liked, certain elements I didn't. I think Terror was the big element that I was a little iffy on as well. But for the most part, like, these two, Fury of the Wild and Grandmaster, are pretty much entirely flawless, and they've hit the mark all the way across. Fury's just bad cores, where Gmoff just had great cores. I just loved him. I love the cores for Gmoff. So that's all the time I think we had for this one. If you enjoyed, do leave a comment. It's always nice to hear what you guys think about these kind of things. And honestly, if you want to get this discussion rolling, or if you had any commentary about any of these trees so far, I'd love to hear what you've got to say. I'd love to hear what you got to say. Other than that, I think I'm going to get up out of here. I'm super excited about all these different changes. And I'm just kind of hoping that they don't change things so drastically based upon the negative feedback that I've seen on the forums. Because honestly, I don't think a lot of that feedback is even focused on the trees. It's focused on the idea of change itself. And change is good. Change is actually good. We need it. We need some new lifeblood in the game. We need some people who can actually... Like, these trees are super easy to navigate. I don't understand why there's so much hate. They're wonderfully designed. They're thematic as all get up. They are just incredible versions of themselves. And the current Inception is clunky and redonkulous, and it's very difficult to figure out what things mean. What are twists of fate? What is what are fate points? Like, how do I get them? How do I apply them in these trees? Why can't I take tiers on these 5 or 6s on the other trees? Why is it so much different than my current system, which is like my enhancement system? Like, these are the exact same trees. I don't see what the problem is. The scaling is a matter of numbers. That's a thing that'll come with balance changes, which is super easy to do. But the idea, the theme behind these trees is pretty much flawless. Like, the worst grade I gave was a B-, and it was for, what was it? I don't remember which one got the B-, honestly. I think it probably Primal Avatar got the B-, wasn't it? Yeah, this one, because it was kind of a little here, there, and everywhere. There were a bunch of abilities I didn't like in it. But for the most part, like, these trees are very well done. And the parts that aren't well done can be scaled. It's just numbers. Every build in the game is going to take Dire Charge. Every build in the game that can manage to get the DCs high enough is going to take Mass Frog. And Mass Frog was a 28 one, isn't it? So you could get both, yeah. So everybody would grab both of those. It didn't reduce the amount of build options, it increased them, because now you have to build something that can take advantage of one of those, and you get to try different things. I thought that was the best part about Ditto, and every time I read the forums, a new player comes on and he says, I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody's like, try something out. That's the best part of Ditto. And then people get super upset when they're forced to try something out. I just don't understand it. There's a lot of hate for these trees, and they're undeserved. They're completely undeserved. The trees are pretty wonderful. If this is the experience as well, this whole area here, if we get to go in here and actually learn about Destinies, and this is how we become Epic Toons, this will be completely flawless. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, there we go. Just to see the grandeur of this place, because there's a lot of work put into this development area here. Like, this is a big deal, and it's really, really cool looking. If this is how we get to have the beginning of our epic experience with a new toon, this is probably the best thing they've ever done for this game. I'm going to say almost bar none. Almost bar none. This is the best thing that's ever happened to Ditto in the time that I've spent here. And if this is the way the game is going to be, I am completely on board. And kudos to the development team, and kudos to the balance departments, and everybody who had a hand in this. Even the art style, like all of these, they kind of look like different, they're like sphere halls. Like, every one of these that you go into is a different hall, and you get to feel like you're a martial dude. You're going into like this demon martial area. Look at the blood on the sides here. Very, very demonic, very Shavarath oriented. Arcane spell books. There's a dragon there. Let's just go ahead and see it, actually. Let's just go right in. Yeah, look at this. Look at these areas. Like, this is really cool. This is super arcane oriented. You have Hersam is over here as one of the epic toons that'll teach you. I don't know who Drak Thrakus is, but I think that he's an iconic character. But, like, you have epic characters teaching you epic things. It feels like there's actually a lot of order in this whole deal. But honestly, like, these are beautiful areas to go into. Can I fall off the side? Cool, I can fall off the side. Okay, but that's super cool. Oh, and it just leads you back up. Okay, whatever. Well, I'm gonna climb up on your bookshelf if I can. There we go. Ah, darn it. Well, whatever. Anyway, that is really cool. And if this is where you get to go to level up and be an epic character, I'll feel epic by the end of the day. This is important. This is actually important for the life of the game. And it gives you an identity to these trees that never existed before. Like, you even have Dawnstar, you have a bunch of different paladin-esque people, Avar, I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, Kalendar. You have a bunch of, like, paladin priest characters in the Divine Sphere. You have people who actually feel like they belong to these spheres, and there's an identity to all this. There's actually people who seem like they're epic. It's really cool. But no, this is the best that you could do, honestly. And if they're keeping this as the leveling experience, and they're actually doing something with this, instead of this just being a developed area or a developer area, if they're actually keeping this, then it will really feel like an epic experience. Oh wow, it's just such good work. It's just such good work. I want to jump down there, but I'm not allowed to. Yeah, they're not going to let me. But it's such good work, honestly, and I give them full props. Hey, there's Sable, actually. That's pretty neat. Ironsides. Yep. No, they've got a couple of iconic characters. I am really ecstatic for these changes, though. Extremely ecstatic for the changes. And I think you guys should be as well. I think that this is a big deal. It's a big change for this game. A much-needed change. And honestly, I really, really want to see something like this come to fruition. That being said, I think it's time to get up out of here. That was a long, and actually a really long and drawn-out analysis of new patch notes, and it's just alpha patch notes. These are all subject to change. But honestly, I'm super surprised and ecstatic. I'm surprised by how well it was done, and ecstatic by what the potential is. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here and let you guys go finally, and I will see you later, and I hope to see some comments on this. I'd love to get this discussion rolling. But I'm going to get up out of here. That's enough. I'm going to get up out of here. See you for now, and take care. Bye-bye for now.